We're here. This is ArachNerds episode 11, brought to you by Fulvius Apparel, Shameless, Selfless, what is it? Shameless, Selfish Plug. It's my business. Fulvius Apparel. Shirts, hats, coffee mugs, all that good stuff. Go get some. Use the code THN at checkout. Get 15% off your order. That is the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you. I know schedule-wise and show-wise, the last month has been really lacking. We haven't done Snakes and Stogies in, 3 or 4 weeks. More or less, Phil had a family emergency that required him to leave and go handle some help with some funeral arrangements. So Phil has been out of commission. He is back home now, but now he's currently playing catch up with work and everything like that. So there's nothing wrong. So if anyone's been wondering why we haven't been doing Snakes and Stogies on Mondays, it's just because Phil's been busy with something much more serious and important than podcasts. So that's the reason there. I think the Flippin' Tin boys are doing something right now. And then Jake and I believe, are scheduled to be back doing THP next week. So hopefully come Monday, Snakes and Stogies will be back on its regular schedule. This episode for ArachNerds, it is just me. Sarg moved recently, got a new job. That new job's been working him real hard, so he is unfortunately MIA currently. But I'm thinking by the time we do episode 12, everything should be back to normal. He was doing some pretty intense training stuff that required him to be there a lot later and a lot more often than he had initially planned. So that's kind of gotten in the way of him doing the extracurriculars and stuff. So no big deal there. He'll be back. But quick updates. I really don't have any. Nothing new in the room. Just stuff growing. And Subfusca are doing well that I got from Marshall Arachnids. Everyone else is doing fine. So nothing new to report there. Now that Sark has moved, I think he is already plotting what he's going to be getting into at some point here in the coming weeks. So we'll cover that next time he is on. Figure out exactly what he's got cooking. So, but this episode, this has been one that's been in the works for a while now. Schedules, obviously, like I said, the last couple of weeks have been kind of squirrely, so we've had to move and punt things here and there. But we are here and we are back. Very excited. There's a very good chance that this is going to end up being a multi-part thing, because I think with the amount of stuff that we want to cover, I don't think we're going to be able to do it in one show, so we might have to schedule a part 2. But this episode we are joined by Dritz of Underdark Inverts, which if you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, there's a very good chance you've at least seen his name pop up.
Hopefully in a good way. Hopefully.
Ton of information, wealth of knowledge. Been in the hobby for, I think, over 2 decades now.
Yeah, a little longer, a little tad longer, I guess.
So we're gonna get into all kinds of stuff.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I'm looking excited. So this is gonna be good.
So we have our outlines we put together, and as I was putting this one through, I was like, "There's no way we're gonna get all of this. Can't just be a single episode. We gotta."
Yeah, and anybody that knows me too, I tend not to shut up. Easily overtalk myself many times. So try to not do that to you guys right now.
Well, I mean, we, as much as I hate to do sort of the typical, how'd you get into inverts thing? How did you get into inverts? What's your background in them? Sort of, where did it all start? You can give us the long version or the Cliff Notes version, whatever you'd prefer.
Okay, cool, man.
First invert you started out with, first spider you kept, all that.
All right. So yeah, I got my first spider when I was really, really young. I was, as every kid, very interested in bugs and anything that was different and unique and scary. Or, I think I gravitated to bugs first of all was because everybody wanted to kill them and squish them, and I wanted to know why. Because every time I saw a bug and people freaked out and wanted to squish it or kill it, I couldn't comprehend what that purpose was. So from a very early age, I was extremely fascinated with anything that wasn't human.
Hmm.
Um, and bugs being one of the most unique organisms on our planet, next to plants and fish and birds, and you know, um, I was the kid that you'd go over to your friend's house and there's this guy under the porch, collecting bugs, like putting them in jars, and I was the kid with jars and jars and jars of bugs that I didn't even know what they were, or collecting them, keeping them, ant farms, everything else. And then because of my closeness with bugs, I realized very quickly that there are certain types of bugs that rule the bug world, just like in the animal world, like, lions and tigers, sharks, blah, blah, blah. I realized really quickly that spiders were special, you know, and I just started to get into them and realize that they were amazing. And then there were so many different kinds. And like one thing that really stuck out the most, and like I'll never forget, is that spiders, no matter what, there's always a new one.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen lightning bugs, everybody's seen it, but there's not like 52 lightning bugs. There's
Right.
one, you know.
Hmm.
So spiders for me was like, it was just like I could never get enough.
Hmm.
And I'm a huge avid reader. I love to get smarter every day. That's just like who I am as a person. And one thing that I was always doing as a child was reading books, big into fantasy, big to adventure, magic, things that you can't explain. And so I started reading D&D, magic and lore and books and all those things, and down even to Pokemons, like shit. And spiders were that for me.
Hmm.
And then I realized right away that holy shit, there's just not enough spiders for me. And then that was right around the time that those home computers came out and the dial-up internet. And you'd log in and there was like a chat room and you could like finally talk about spiders with somebody, and then there was websites,
Yep.
and I think I got my first spider when I was like 6 years old. Like, it was a gift, family member, and just changed my life forever. Like if you haven't owned a tarantula, I implore you to at least, experience it, and it'll change your life forever as far as how it works in your
Mhm.
brain, how it works
Yeah.
when you instinctually see a spider and you're like, "Ugh." It's like they're designed to do that. But
Right.
if you understand it, it's actually like incredibly fascinating. Like I get so excited when I see my spiders out. Like to this day, we're talking 20
Hmm.
plus years later. Like and so that was magical to me. And then with the books, there was a special character in those books, and it was dark elves. It was a race of elves that worshipped spiders. They lived in the underworld. They were driven underground from other elves, and if you follow D&D, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's people that will be like, oh, I know what he means. So anyway, dark elves, they worship the deity Lolth, which is the spider queen. And because of that, I'm always talking about spiders and everything else. La la la, I become Dritz. um, and it's just never changed. And then after that, it grew into trying to collect everything I can get. And I want to say, I think I bought my first tarantula. I actually bought my first tarantula from Kelly Swift, I think, on his Swift Inverts website back in the early 90s, like late, early 90s. Yeah. And I bought an OBT, I think. And then the next morning, I had a couple extra bucks and I bought a spider from underground, or
Hmm.
no, backwoods. What is it? What was it?
Blackwater. There's backwater, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of Florida, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, those guys. And clearly was a wild caught spider. And
Yeah.
you know, and then books. Then I was like, holy shit, there's people that do this. Like it's a thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, now 28 plus 29, 30 fucking years later, I have 5,000 plus spiders and probably
Good God.
that
Yeah.
many more out in the United States with friends and people that I
Hmm.
collaborate and breed with. And people are like, wow, you keep a lot of spiders. No, I don't. Spiders keep me, you know, like anybody who's ever been in a rough place in their life and has tarantulas in their life can quickly, easily say that it's I don't know what it is, whether it's the connection to the spider or the spider's connection to us, or the fact that they've evolved over 300 million years to be so perfect at what they do
Right.
that it almost rubs off on you in their perfection. And the fact that you can influence that perfection and
Hmm.
gain more from it, I think it was like Pokemon. I can't actually explain it any better than that, that I could actually keep one, raise it up, battle it, breed it, create more,
Yeah.
and under my terms. And I had
Hmm.
control as a kid who grew up in a really rough, hard place, and all the shit that I've been through, and that's irrelevant. But spiders always were there for me. They
Hmm.
always was something that needed my care, required me to be smart. They require you to like learn. If you're going to keep spiders and breed spiders on the level that I've grown to become, you got to be checked in, man. There's
Hmm.
roll call here. You know what I mean? There is
Yeah.
no, well, I'll do it later. No, you're just not going to succeed. So that created like accountability for me as a child when I didn't have any or wasn't required to be accountable for my actions. And
Yeah. I
uh,
think it's just that having that something to focus on that puts the blinders on to everything else.
yeah,
Because
changed my life.
I was a
Changed my
military
life
kid, so we moved around a lot, and and changing friend groups and stuff every 3 or 4 years. It was like reptiles for me, and eventually spiders. Those didn't really sort of come into the picture until later, but like having herps as like my thing, I could take that with me wherever we went. Like I didn't need like big social circles. I didn't need a lot of friends. Like I had my thing, and that was like all I was good with that. And so that's kind of the thing. Like, yeah, you say you get into that, and you just say stay so focused on it that anything else that could have possibly been a distraction or taking you away from that and taking you down a different path. It's irrelevant at that point.
Mm. No, I agree. And then coupled with everything that I just said, I will have to attribute my success and like the place that I am with spiders right now is so wholesome and real. It's life. I don't know how to explain it. It's like every day is like you exit this day with a smile, you
Hmm.
know? And I'm a firm believer in like you got one life. You got one day. You could die tomorrow, not by your choice. Like shit
Right.
happens in this world. And like for me, like the excitement and joy that they put in my life and the ability to be able to connect with them and then give that to other people
Hmm.
is is pure magic.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it any other way. And I've never looked back. Never looked back. And every day that's it. That's what it is to me. Is there are a lot of people out there who are like in a dark place or trying to recover from drugs or divorce or you name it. It goes. The list is huge. But I have learned and understood that by being a part of this community, you're not just keeping spiders, but you're keeping humanity and nature entwined with one another.
Hmm.
Whether these spiders go extinct tomorrow or whether, you know, nobody cares about spiders ever again, and I would still keep them. I would still have them. I could care less about sharing them with anyone else as long as they could be in my life. And
Yeah.
and that's all it is for me really. When people want their spider and they're trying to get the next one, and it's like the community of tarantulas can be very aggressive, like, oh, you should have did your research, blah blah blah. And it's like,
Mm.
one thing that was really crushing blow, because I never did social media ever, ever, ever. And then one of my buddies finally was like able to convince me, and he was like, dude, you gotta start Facebook, man. Like I'm telling you, if you just do Facebook, like you can get this out there. You can like, and I'm like, dude, like, I've been online, I've did MySpace and like all the chat rooms, and it's like, because the world has changed, so has the industry and so has the community with everyone else, and I will say that I'm really grateful that I've been blessed enough to have spiders in my life every day. And one thing that I've learned over time too is that if you love your spiders, like Dave Shout out to Dave, Beastie Room. Love your spider. Stay calm and just love it. Just, I'm telling you, if you just love your spiders and care for them and breed them and do what the spider wants to do, which is live its life and procreate, and then share that with the people who are trying to get them, the spiders will pay for everything. Like, I don't need to pay my power bill. I don't need to,
Right.
like, I already had a normal life and job in place, but like integrate that with the love and the spread of knowledge and the understanding that there is so much more and better than us. And anytime that you're doing spider shit, you will, everything's paid for. Everything's all set. Everybody knows everything's good. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. And people tend to get hung up in like, oh, I got a male and I was supposed to get a female and they robbed me. And like, do you know how many times I've like bought a female and then it's like 2 months later it's a male? I'm usually like, sweet, because I know 10, 15, 20, 30 people who need a male that have females. And instead of being selfish and self-centered, like, oh, I should have got a female, well, just send that male off into the world. And then because of social media, I was really able really quickly to learn that everybody out there is like me. But there is also evil in the world, and there's always people trying to trick and take advantage. And
yeah, I mean, there's going to be bad actors no matter what industry or hobby you're in. You know, it doesn't matter if it's model trains or if it's tarantulas. There's going to be people in there that are less than stellar. And it's the invert community. You know, tarantulas specifically. It's in comparison to the sort of the reptile hobby. I mean, there is some crossover there, but for the most part, it's wild. Sort of how the internet has made things infinitely massive, but also incredibly small. So you have the ability for people, if they, whether they've kept tarantulas or not before, you know, they can get in touch with someone and figure out how to do it. But then you also have the community that is, everyone kind of knows each other sort of thing. It's the sort of the, I won't necessarily say that it's a tight knit community, but it's definitely smaller than the reptile world as far as social media goes. And it's interesting to sort of watch it all kind of play out and unfold, because you know, you have your Kelly Swifts and other people that have been sort of at the forefront of breeding and selling tarantulas in particular over the last 20 plus years. And, you know, I feel like there's not nearly as many of those guys as there are, like when you go through reptiles, you can, there's sort of forefathers that you can easily think back to and name. But with tarantulas, it's such a smaller amount. And then there's a lot of crossover in that regard of guys that were also sort of the academic side of it, that sort of had a foot in each trench, so to speak. You know, it's again, I don't know if social media is sort of a net positive or overall not great. I like to think that if you sort of stay away from the bullshit and surround yourself with the right people, it's a great thing. You know, there's a lot of, like, I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if it wasn't for it. But at the same time, you know, there's a trade-off, the good with the bad, you know.
It's a very, very, once again, I look at social media and like Facebook, it's a weapon. It's a tool that you can use. But it can also destroy you like anything else. You know, you can cut your hand off with a saw, but you can also build $1 million homes with them. You know, there's a balance, you know. And one of the things that I take away from like all that is one thing I've learned, you know, and my background is in construction. And when I was in school for spiders and stuff, I couldn't afford it, man. I didn't have parents to pay for my shit. And like, it's rough, man, you know. So I had to have a job, and I've always did construction since before spiders. Since I was a little kid, I was banging nails and running around on job sites. And you know, if you focus on your craft, regardless of what it is, and then whether you want to make a career out of spiders or not, it's one thing to realize too that it's not going to happen overnight. You know, it's like anything else in nature, man. If you want positive results, it takes time. Nobody or anything in nature is positive, and it's going to stick around for a long time if they didn't take their time and do it right to get there. What happens is because of spiders, and there's so many of them in the community, the way it is buy, sell, sell, sell. Those are cheap, these are cheap. Oh, we'll flip them, buy more. But you can easily, quickly turn into just a everyday broker, and now it becomes a job. Now
Yeah.
it took all the fun out of it, you know. So if you follow that step, and then ultimately only care about the spider and the production and the producing of these spiders, I give away more spiders than I've ever sold, ever, 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 ever. You know, for every spider I sell, I probably give away 10, you know, or gift them or share them or sometimes even kill them. You know, like it's not intentionally, but if you handle thousands of spiders a
Yeah.
week,
I mean,
a month,
statistically,
you shut that
it's
lid, click, and
inevitable.
it's fast,
Yeah.
and you get that little Cooperius that goes, "Woo."
Mhm.
Sometimes it happens,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like, ha, like I did on purpose, right? So there's the intent, there's the plan, there's the knowledge, there's the understanding that the ultimate goal of this is so that when I'm dead and gone, their populations will be sustainable in the United States. That is what the Underdark is. My goal is to breed everything. You see all the time people posting, "Oh, you're breeding an elbow, you're breeding an LP. Shame on you. Good luck." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I can get rid of 2,000 LP slings by tomorrow
Yeah.
without a qualm. I could 20 minutes gone." So I don't understand why there's this thing of like, "Oh, like how dare you?" Like, what do you mean? Like the more the better.
Right.
We're not pushing them into the wild to destroy populations that we can't control. We're breeding them in captivity so that they're sustained forever. If we would have been doing what I do and what we as a team do at Underdark, we would never have the problem that everyone knows today, finding a rose hair that's full
Yeah.
grown female,
Well, you would
finding
think that the hobby would have taken that
but
whole instance in that scenario and said, "Wait a second, we should probably look at a lot of more of these common species because the likelihood of that happening again is probably definitely not zero."
and that's what we are. We are doing that. We are building a community and a collaborative team across the United States, and it is vast. I'm
Mhm.
telling you right now, it is vast. There are a lot of people out there with that plan. And the only reason we didn't know it then, 10 years ago, when H. chalents were 15, $20 for a female, like you would go and get a Samani like you would today,
Mhm.
we didn't foresee that. And without the knowledge that we have today, because of all of our collaborated efforts for it, we didn't know that it took 10 years to get a female to that point and
Right.
then breed it and land a male that nobody wants to share because they're pissed they have a male anyway, and they
Mhm.
let it die in a cup somewhere thinking that it's worthless and nobody would want it. And but without males there is no industry, and and
Yeah.
and we're that's what we are doing. That is what we are changing. Is if you have a male, great, bring it to me, I'll give you a free one in its place. You know what I mean? A captive bred one. You know, so if you have a wild caught female cobalt blue and it turns male and it's mature and you're like, oh my god, what do I do with this thing? Instead of like letting it rot in a cup or whatever, social media in our community that we're working hard to build will forever create a wheel to
Mhm.
where even when I'm gone, there's going to be this network of people who are like, hey, let me get that male, because even if I have 7 females, which I have,
Yeah.
I'll pair them. There's only 2 that are ready. I'll try to pair them. Oh, damn, they both don't want nothing to do with them. And I see tomorrow that there's another cobalt blue male. I still want him because
Mhm.
I could get on the phone tomorrow with a lot of my buddies. I can name off many right now that I could call and be like, hey, you need a cobalt blue male? And they'd be like, hell yeah, let me get one of those, please. You
Well,
know,
it's also, I
so
mean, it's funny too because you look at like lone females don't produce any more results than lone males do.
let me
Like
tell you this
you
though.
gotta have both.
Listen to this. Once you get to that point in the community with collaborated, trusted friends, um, it's not only about sending mails. You always hear, oh, let me send you this mail because my girl's not ready, and you pair it with your girl, and if we get a sack, we'll split it. Cool. The average everyday run of the mill loan, right?
Mhm.
But what if you had 3 P Metallica females, you've never bred them before, you know, and one is like starting to turn that grayish, sexually
Yeah.
mature color, you know, and then you've got an older female you never bred, and then all of a sudden, oh shit, that sling's turned male. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to breed them. Well, guess what? You can ship them to our team in our community, and there's so many people that like, I'll breed them for you and I'll give them back, man. Pay like it there. So listen, what's really amazing about this, I'm like jumping over myself, is like we've gotten to the point now where there's a lady, her name is Rhonda, and she travels the United States going to people like me and all different breeders and collectors and vendors and people that have males. It's like, oh my God, my Wahine is mature now. I'm in Chicago or wherever. And it's like, cool, Rhonda's on her way through Missouri and back and forth. And then it's like, cool, she'll scoop him up, drop him in New York to Troy or Darren Palmit or whoever. Frank Soma, like everybody, it goes on and on and on and on, all the way to California to Nate Wilderness, like good friend of mine. Like I have an errata male that I'm not going to use. He paired my girls. He's sitting around. There's no question. I'm sending that to Nate.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I don't need any money. I don't even care if I get slings back. It's by being that way and knowing that your spiders can communally build. That's why we're nowhere near Europe and UK, by the way, is because the United States cannot do this. There's like 3 simple rules to mastering and growing and being a contributor to the community is 1, be honest and truthful, love and worship your spiders, not care, not easy, worship your spiders. If you really want it to be a two-way street, worship your spiders. When you're tired and hungry, so are they, kind of thing, right?
Right.
And then think about all the other people who helped you get where you're at. A lot of the knowledge that I learned, and like people like, wow, it's like endless supply of knowledge, like books, people that took the time to speak to me and talk to me and relay this information. There's a lot of OGs in the community that don't get a lot of respect, and everybody knows the big brandy names on Facebook. And honestly, a lot of those are awesome people. A lot of them behind closed door would give no fucks if your spider died tomorrow. They just want that refund or they want to move on to the next import, and that is sad.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have gotten next out of the community by the behaviors they've used to bring spiders into the United States. And there is ways to bring spiders in the United States legally and do it right and sustain them forever. So if I breed any species in the Underdark, any babies I get, I keep 10, I sell usually 50 to 60%, always for half of retail, because I'm not here to cut out my friends. I'm here to get them out there. And most of the time, the people who are truly vending and retailing in the face value of our community, those are the people that I'm trying to get my spiders to. I'm not trying to make a website and sell my shit for the highest dollar and get those auctions and sales. And no, I'm actually the person that's selling to them.
Yeah.
Because
they're the ones on the front lines getting people into it and selling people their first spiders and things like that. It makes
correct. Right. I don't have time to have a website, and people all the time hit me up. Do you have a list? And I'm like, oh my God. If I was to make a list right now, not only would it be vast like the fucking Bible, it would just be incorrect because I'm rushing and I'm not focusing. And then by tomorrow, like I'm sitting here right now, and like Becky came downstairs. She's like, oh, by the way, Dylan's package came. Dylan Tenney, 8 Deadly Sins, sent me a package, couple Vietnam Highlands, really cool stuff that people aren't breeding. But I only want them because I'm going to raise them up. If I have a male or one of our people or community friends, Ari and Jesse, or it goes on and on and on. The list is huge. Zach and Donna, like there's people out there, Christina, like Andrew, there's so many people that profit from this business. But even if they stopped making money, they'd still have spiders in their home and still do what we do. Because we were doing that before there was a market to sell them.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, there were no expos. There wasn't. There were reptile shows, and people put a few spiders on the table.
Right. They were always kind of like a basket filler of sorts.
When I was raising spiders and growing them and learning that, oh my God, there is no crossbreeding. Oh my God, it's wrong. Oh my God, that just the taxonomy alone, and like learning how they're changing, and that we don't actually know anything about 80% of the tarantulas in our community. We don't actually even know about species this, species that. All we know is that some dude collected it supposedly there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you get 2 years later another one from there, and they're clearly different. You know, like Tibialis or Utaitani or species like that. You know, like clearly the same spider. Smithy, Hamorai, same spider, but separated geologically. And it's probably because of humans most of the time. Most of the time you see drastic change in any animal, it's because of influential change outside of Mother Nature. So the industry itself has created all kinds of hobby forms and problems and issues, and we haven't did our job correctly to identify and describe and make sure that these spiders aren't identified incorrectly. All these common names get plastered on everything. Everything's Vietnam this and that, and like it
Do you
becomes a
think
cluster.
Pamphibedius and Formictopus are sort of the worst offenders in that arena?
So that's a good question, actually. I gotta
That's the one that I see
look.
the most, especially Pamphibedius, because like I'm not super hip to a lot of them. Niserg loves them. Like that's probably his favorite genus. Those in Formictopus, he's all about them. And he like I'll send him pictures or a list of something locally for sale or whatever, be it Craigslist or you know what have you, and he'll look at that list and be like, 3 of those don't make sense. And like I wouldn't be able to tell you because I've never
Right.
been into
So,
Pamphibedius really all that much, so I couldn't really say for sure. But he can pick through stuff and just completely tear it apart and say 4 of those 6 are wrong and I've never heard of them. The name doesn't make sense. Like he'll send pictures of stuff and be like, explain why. And like he goes in this whole thing. And it just seems to me from the outside looking in that those
and
2
actually,
genres seem to be the worst in the regard of the mystery localities and type forms and things like that.
so in regards to Pampho, I will say that Sarga's right on the money. And what happens is because it's such a small place, considering how diverse it is, the ecosystem in those areas go from sea level all the way to snow in such a small region. And because of the way nature works and the way that nature has a drastic ability to create and separate single species from high and low elevation and stuff like that, going from Ecuador uh, into Peru is like straight up, you know.
Yeah.
So you have spiders that live in that same part of the world that live on coastal beach regions, and then you have some that can withstand 45 to 50 degrees like it's nothing. You know, so you're going to get a vast differential change because of the natural barriers between them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what happens is over time you have species that separate and change based on those locations, and then you have human influence where which if humans didn't exist in our footprint on the world, this would have happened anyway, but slowly and naturally over time. In third world countries, especially places that are controlled by cartels and corrupt governments and weapons and drugs and places that the average human is not going to go safely. It naturally shelters, but also damages species that wouldn't have been in contact with humans. Alter the world at an accelerated rate, way faster than any other mammal on this planet or any other animal on this planet. Our touch, our presence alone creates drastic change. We can put a plantation field full of bananas or sugarcane and change the ecosystem by next season by the power that humans have. There's nothing in nature that can do that other than catastrophic events, which are very vast and rare, you know, like far between. And when it happens, we've always seen like continental divide, you get extreme separation and differential from like animals in Australia to animals in North America.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we were the same place, you know, but nature did that over the course of hundreds of millions of years. Humans can do that kind of damage in a couple hundred years, couple thousand years. And then you have people like us who want to collect and know these spiders, and then you have spiders that don't typically migrate or typically move out of this range that now have to, and they shift and change into another region and potentially hybridize naturally but due to human interaction, due to human consequence. So the smaller the region, the more control it has to keep people out and control over that area. Even if you're protecting it, let's say you're protecting a national park. Once upon a time, now you've protected this national park, nothing gets in and out. So when before you had change, natural change. And so we can actually make it worse or better, just like the Himalayan smithy, which was probably due to, the Mesoamerican change in our planet, where, now the river Balsas goes like this when
Mm-hmm.
it used to be twice as wide and different, and it's changed. And now you've got species differential. And it's such a fast change that there's very, very minute, noticeable traits that make us different, even though if you were to look down to their haplo or the holotype of that DNA sequence of that spider, they are different species
Yeah.
because of their DNA. But can you breed them together? Yes. Just like humans, there's a lot of different types of humans, but we
Mm-hmm.
can all breed together, and that's part of the reason why it's brown in the community is you don't want to breed, or hybridize tarantulas, is because you don't want to make it any worse, dude. Don't make it any worse. We've already destroyed our coral reefs. We've destroyed everything special on this planet. Let's not make it any worse. Let's try to preserve what nature already has in place. And if it does alter and change over time by doing that, then we should be fine. So Pamphos forefront because of the misunderstanding and the fact that there's this transitional world. The only reason Pamphos are even here is because we want them. I'm gonna tell you right now, in Ecuador, I know a lot of Ecuadorian people. I'm a roofer, I'm a contractor. I work day in and day out with a lot of Ecuadorian, Honduras, and people from Colombia and Mexico, and where they live and grew up. When you see a tarantula, you kill it.
Mm-hmm.
You step on it. It's voodoo. It's bad luck. Kind of like black cat. You know.
Right. Right.
So I got a lot of Spanish friends they're like, oh, I saw you on Facebook with that big araña, and I'm like, oh, dude, check it out. And they're like, no, it's better dead. And I'm like, bro, come
Yeah.
on, But it's like, so the world is still like that. So then you get this world of like, they're literally actually like just killing the spiders because now we're pulling them out. You've got the natural change because of humans to the environment, and then you've got the already predators and humans killing them because of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have no choice, and because nature does what it does, and that's why I've always been tied into nature and like the forest is alive kind of a thing, because even with human footprint and all of our bullshit that we compress onto the world, animals still succeed and change.
Life finds a way.
Whether you plant a plant in the middle of the plaza at the mall, that thing's going to grow and it's going to do the best it can, so that's all we should try to do and make that happen. And what I find is there's species that where they're from have large concentrations of people, and where they're at, those spiders are being yanked and they're not protected, like there's still a lot of spiders being yanked out of those places. They still allow people to just go there like it's a fun vacation, like, oh, let's go with a bunch of spider friends and go to Peru. Yay. You're
Yeah.
actually not helping the situation by going there and pulling them out and playing with them and taking pictures and being like, I'm an expert now. You're not helping the situation at all. You're actually making it worse. It's no different than being like, well, spiders don't want to be handled. You should leave them alone. And like, so then why would you like do that for
Yeah.
fun
It's
in
kind of
nature?
kind of
You're
count.
gonna have 1,000 spiders at home that you don't handle, and they don't want to be held, and you preach and preach on your pages about protecting this animal and making it not stressed, and then you go on vacation to Vietnam and you're like with an electric blue, like, look at me,
Yeah.
like that is the problem. Like the spiders are already here. Whether I quit doing this tomorrow or not,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing I can do about it. Spiders are going to be raped and pillaged from nature for the rest of their lives. So the definition to me, when people are like, oh, I'm a tarantula keeper, blah, blah, blah. A hobbyist collects one because it's pretty and they want it and it's cool. Look at my spider. A keeper keeps them for the benefit of the spider. They're already here, right? They're beautiful. I want one as a pet. I love them. I worship them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do everything in my power to give it a good life. and make sure that that particular specimen procreates and creates more to the best of my ability, right? And then you have people that are like die hard, and then you get to that point where you're like, oh wow, I can make money on this. I can actually not only can I like sell a couple of these slings and get that new one that I want, I can actually sell the rest of these and like pay my power bill.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this machine, this monster. And then you got people pissed because you sold your Marshalli for $10 and they're selling theirs for 35. You know, well, put the work in, put the time in, produce the spider out of love, give away spiders, and then you can easily sell all the spiders you've ever wanted to sell, you know, and pay your power bill. But that's what they want to pay the power bill first. And then what happens is you get this fuckery in the system. You get AVIX of all different types and sizes and different things, and nobody knows what the fuck they're looking at.
Yeah,
There's
that's
wicked
another one
arguments
to
and
think about. That's in there, that mystery realm.
Another one, honestly, personally, I think the one that is the most damaged would be North American Aphonopelma. If I go back, sorry, after all that rant, to go back and answer your question, yes, Pamplobidius is there, Phormictopus is there, but if I had to label one genus that really is the most neglected and like, oh, Arizona blonde, it would be Aphonopelma. There's so many of them out there that we don't even understand what they are typically, and there's so many out there that people don't know. There's so many people that try to ID them and sell them as this, and they're actually completely wrong. When I was like 9, 10 years old, like everybody could get a Chalcodes for $5, $6,
Right, next
$7.
Yeah.
A big old female, like you bring her home, she lays a sack, like no problem, you know, which you can still do today, which is crazy. But then now all of a sudden there's 5, 6, 7 different types of Chalcodes, you know, locales and differentials in the sexual differences between the males. And then it's like, oh my God, there's species of Aphonopelma in the United States that we still don't know about. That is what's crazy.
Yeah.
There are actually collectors, breeders, you know, scientists that I speak to and talk to and breed and do projects with every day that have species and know about species that people are selling them as this, and that's not what it is, and they've never actually even had one. That's just what everybody calls it. You know what I mean? They don't even know. They don't even know what they got.
So how do people that are coming into the hobby though? How are they? What's in your opinion? I mean, what's the best way to navigate that to know that you're getting what you think you're getting? Whether it's a Aphonopelma or Pamphos or Phormictopus or Vicularia, you know, like that's a tough one to navigate because if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know any better. Like there's been people with like green tree python. That's the only way I can really relate this is like green tree pythons. It's a very similar thing. There's, you know, localities of green trees. It's not uncommon for you to see imports that are labeled as one locality because that's what's currently the hot seller, even though they're not. And the sellers likely know that it's not, but they're like, someone's going to see this that doesn't know any better. They're going to snatch it up. But then they're going to get it. They're going to get it home. They're going to post pictures. They're going to send it to friends. Someone in that circle is going to be like, you got scammed. It's not what they sold it to you as.
Yeah.
Like,
so
how do we get around?
If you're getting into the hobby, you're never going to be able to know the sexual the sexual organs characteristics, the behavioral differences of certain species without the time and the knowledge, you know.
Right.
And even with the books, they're wrong. And one thing that's important to know when you're getting your tarantula is, for instance, to give an example, everybody's like, oh, I want a Grammostola pulchra, you know, I want the Brazilian black, and it's like very few people in the United States own a Brazilian black.
Yeah, that was something that brought up when we had Martial Arachnids on. We had talked about that and how they're most likely not pulchra, which I was unaware of until that we had that conversation.
I started to realize that was the case about 12 years ago, because I was starting to like really like, you know, I'm gonna breed some pulchra, you know, I was like one gene at a time, you know. But when you raise one from a sling and you raise it to a mature male, and you do that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and you're
Yeah.
looking at it under a microscope each time it molts and taking pictures, and then when you're sitting there waiting to like jump in the car and your wife's getting dressed, you click through all your shit and you're like looking at all these pictures, you start noticing differences, dude. You
Mm-hmm.
start noticing characteristic changes, size, molt charts, dates, temperatures, and then it's like, wait a minute, this is, and then it's like, there you go. Then you start to realize size difference, sexual orientation, and placement characteristics of the males and females themselves, how they respond to the conditioning of the weather, because they're ectothermic animals. They
Right.
respond to temperature, light, and moisture always. So naturally, if you're an animal that's perfected its environment over a million years, you're going to show differential and behavioral changes if I don't do it right. Just like if like it never got cold or the hours of daylight didn't change, birds probably wouldn't fly south anymore. You
Mm-hmm.
know, same thing. And then you start to notice these little bit of changes, and then when you get into breeding them and you're trying to make sure, then you start realizing like, I have this one Brazilian black, this, you know, Holcra,
Ulcra.
and then you look at it and then you're like, Cora guy,
Mm-hmm.
and then you really start to notice these differences. And then most of the time, I've actually, I probably only know like 5, 6, maybe 7 or so people that actually have a true Pulchra.
Mm-hmm.
And they are way bigger and thicker and beefier and blacker than you ever thought you saw.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of people are like, well, my Pulchra is not as black as theirs. Like, cool, well, let it molt. Well, they're always fresh and black when they molt, but do
Yeah.
they stay that way? You know, and if you've ever raised a Kura guy up to an adult, they can get big too,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But you, just like anything else in the world, you're gonna have small people and big people, But
Yeah.
once you've kept thousands of them, you have a percentile difference. You've
Mm-hmm.
got drastic differences when you really start to add it up and change it, and that's something that you don't learn overnight. So coming into the hobby, if you're like interested in spiders and you want to have certain species, all I can recommend and say is try your best to do the research, like everybody always says, but also try to vet who you're buying your spider from.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to go to one of these expos and buy that $20 curly hair on the end of the table, you know, and just think you got a curly hair, and you've actually got some hybridized hobby form Honduras type spider that actually is hurting the rest of the planet by breeding it. And the sad part is, I'm guilty of it too. Anybody who says they're not, that breeds spiders on my level, is lying. Hybridizing of tarantulas happens every single day. I guarantee everybody who breeds spiders on the level that I do has a hybrid in their collection and don't know it. Whether it be an avic, a pampho, a pokey,
Mm-hmm.
regalis, and striata, all the time. You know how many times people are like, I'm sending
Oh,
you
I
my
believe
male
it. Yeah.
striata, and it shows up and it's a friggin' regalis and he's like dying. I'm like, he's already on his way out anyway, but
Right.
it's a striata, just saying. And I'm guilty of it too. Do you know how many times like I've gotten a mail from a buddy and he's like, oh, it's a regalis mail or Miranda mail, and you send it and they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not what it is. Like, sorry, it was on the shelf. That's what I had. It
Mm-hmm.
happens. So one thing that I would say is if you're really going to get into spiders and you're going to keep them and you're actually considering breeding them, reach out to people in the community like myself and the many other people that are just like that we want. That's all we're trying to do, is make sure that we can do this right. And shit happens, mistakes happen. you know I'm gonna tell you right now, dude, like, I didn't know that there were different locales of OBT. When I got my first OBT, I didn't know. I thought there was an orange OBT.
Right.
Now I have like 10, 11 different kinds. I even have different kinds of the same locale because there's clear visual sexual differences,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no proof of it because nobody's got one. Okay, to give you another example, everybody's got a Highland and Lowland subfusca, right?
Right.
Everybody's got one of those, but it's like, oh, you mentioned, oh, I have a Pascal Lessier. Well, no, you don't. That's just a hybrid. Well, dude, so is a Highland and a Lowland. The way they got to the United States was from hybridizing through Canada and Russia. Like, but there's still subfusca. There's still that. The DNA is still that species. You're going to have variation and change,
Mm-hmm.
locale, weather, dirt color differences like OBT. You've got the Usambara, you've
Right.
got Tempe, Mozambique, Botswana,
Kigoma.
Mikumi,
Yeah.
Kigoma, all those. But you know why they're the color they are? It's not for fucking fun. It's because the dirt is that color.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the same spider. They've just altered the setae that they reflect light with. And another cool part, like I said, I'll go on tangents all day, but a lot of people don't know that tarantulas are all the same color. I didn't know this either when I was growing up and raising spiders and stuff like that. And that's why there's such a misconception of why spiders and how they see and what they see and what spectrum and rays of light they can actually perceive. I didn't know this, but over time and playing with different exoskeletons from tarantulas and doing breedings and pairings, there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why electric blues are blue. There's a reason why regalis have the yellow under their femurs and their patellas. Like, there's a reason for this. But the average tarantula, there are exceptions to the rule. There are several, probably more than several species we don't even know about. But the average tarantula, the setae on their body is the same color on all species. It's an earth brown tone color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The only reason that we see a tarantula a different color is because of the hair itself. When light hits it, it refracts back the color that we see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a bird and
Right.
you are blind to certain colors,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a tarantula that's hunted by birds, I'm going to evolve to reflect back light that you can't see,
Yep.
which gives me more protection. I'm going to be bright orange in Africa because one, the dirt is orange, but the spider itself is not orange. The sun and the UV light refracting off the dirt in the ground and the spider to our eyes, the way we see light, is why it is orange. And to me, that's incredible. So if you've evolved to be that fucking badass at using light as a weapon to become camouflage to your predators and the world around you. So imagine you're a bird flying through the jungle and you can see fruit like yellow. Why do you think fruits are yellow and red and pretty bright colors? Because birds can pick them out against all the green foliage.
Seed dispersal and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So if I'm a plant trying to get my seeds out, I'm gonna make big bright red fruits because all the birds that are gonna eat them can see red really well against all the fucking vast green and blue and So wouldn't it be cool to be a black spider? And then the way the light reflects it, like a versicolor, for instance, the reason their colors are so drastically altered, and the lot of times people are like, why is the spider putting its butt in the air like that? It's also for the urticating hairs, but it's also because they're trying to, like a solar panel, position the refraction of light for the type of predator that it is. So they've evolved to do that. So when you look at your brown spider and you say, oh, I don't want one of those, it's just a big brown Pamphobetus. Nobody wants a big brown spider. All of them are that color.
Yeah.
You're just fortunate enough to have the eyeballs that allow you to see it.
Yeah.
That's a blessing by Mother Earth. So when you see that beautiful, drastic change of color, it's for a reason. And you're just fortunate enough to be able to see it because our eyeballs can filter and view those wavelengths. Um,
Going
so
back to the subfusca real quick, because you did mention the Pascals, and that's something that I'm not super familiar with. I have seen people talk about them on forums and Facebook and stuff, but I don't know exactly what sort of the story is behind those. What's the deal?
okay, so it's such a taboo, especially with the part of the community of like the scientist side.
Right.
There's always the scientific side, and then there's what they call the hobby side. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's like the keeper, vendor, profitable. There's like three areas of the community. In the hobby side, people want to get all the newest, coolest shit.
Right.
Then you got people who are keepers and are like really serious and love their spiders. They breed them, they profit from them, they want to keep it the way it is, and blah blah blah. But they still want new, cool shit, right? But then you have scientists that are like, hey, I've been breeding these spiders for 20 fucking years. And there's variational changes. Like if you've ever bred Subfusca over 10 year, and that's what I say, you don't really know a tarantula until you've bred it for 10 years. Because you can have one spider and breed her 10 times and it's going to be fucking different every single time. Vastly different. And the only thing that you have any control over is the environment. What makes the spider be a spider. And if you don't know, I have a group called TBR, it's Tarantula Behavioral Research, and it started when I was a little kid. That's what got me onto Facebook, was my buddy being like, bro, you got to put this shit out there. Like, there's so much unknown knowledge about stuff like this. And like, why do spiders act the way they act? Why are they so unique? Why do they do this? Why do OBTs make so much web? Why do GVBs make so much web? It sure as shit ain't for looks. It sure as shit ain't the whole rain. It's to protect them from ants. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't know that unless you've kept them for many, many years and seen them and researched them and learned about them. And when I was learning about spiders, there wasn't shit. There wasn't even internet.
Right.
There was nothing. There was like paperback books or scholastic stuff that you could get into. And I lost my train of thought, but what were we talking about again? I started thinking about something else. The Pascals. Yes. So there's always been Pascal. Okay. There's always been Highland. There's always been Lowland. It's just like OBT with the locales, right? So you've got that mountain region in India where they're from. I can't even say the friggin' name. I've got the book. I can read it off to you guys if you really want to.
What book is it?
So yeah, let me grab it. So this is a book I stumbled across probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And
pause real quick. I gotta. My dogs are freaking the fuck out. I gotta figure out what the deal is. Make sure no one's breaking into my house or something. Just a second.
Dang. So Snoop.
Okay.
All right.
The book.
Did you turn it off, or were we going the whole time?
No, we're still going.
Okay. I farted, I think, and burped a few times, but we're good. All right. So, yeah. When I first got my very first Subfusca, I didn't know what it was. It was just called Species Sri Lanka. And we're talking shit. 18 years ago, maybe. Long time ago, dude. There was barely even a community of people that even knew how to breed them or knew about the 2-month rest period before you bred them, and why they do what they do when they breed, and why their gestation period is the way they are. And when I started finishing up with school, I was so deep into the tarantula thing, I didn't know where I was going next. But I did consciously realize there's really no money in the research of it. It's kind of because you do it.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm going to just dive into it on my own and not try to get paid for that, because that's what I was trying to do, is get paid for that. And then I realized really quickly that there was no information out there. It was some paperback book that talked about sponges and water dishes, and we were already past all of that, dude. Like, one of the first tarantula books I think I ever read was by Fitzgerald Publishing, by Andrew Smith and all his guys, and it was like 10 pages, and it was like, put your tarantula on rocks, stuff in glass case, put sponge water dish, feed cricket daily. you know, like awful. And then your spider died like 2 months later and you didn't know any better. And so that was one thing that I was trying to like figure out and change, is like, how can I get spiders that nobody has, and what can I do differently to like figure this part out? And that was when I started to like really get into the whole college and the whole thing, and like did some trips to Brazil to study the Vocalaria, and Rick West, and then like of course Andrew Smith, and like all the guys like Gene, Verdez. And it wasn't until like going back to Safuska, it wasn't until probably 10, 11 years ago that I was in Europe and I read a book and I couldn't read it, of course, because it was in French,
Yeah.
And it was at one of my buddy's house that was into spiders. And if you've never seen the hobby, the way they do spiders in Europe, it is like night and day difference the way it works here. And then I got my first Fusca, and it was species Sri Lanka, which is what I think they call the Bara
Yeah.
now. But that DNA sequence, that holotype, that species of tarantula has always been three species morph type locales that we know of. There could be more, just like Avix out there. There's so many
Yeah,
Avix we probably
sure.
haven't even found, and we're like M1, 2, M3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6. There's so many more, man. We're finding new ones all the time, and there's places that are being cut off from the world on purpose because humans are pieces of shit, and we did it to ourselves, and we're never going to ever know how badass that spider was out there, because we're never going to go into the deep dark jungles of the Congo. Like supposedly there's spiders out there bigger than apophisize,
Hmm.
apophysis, like it's just we're never going to know. And that fascinated me. So anyway, I got my first one, and then I got more, and then I got more, and I got more, and I just kept buying them and buying them and buying
How
them.
hard
Swing,
were
swing,
they to
swing.
find at that point? Like, how difficult were they to come across?
Very hard. But soon as the world of the internet happened and ArachNerds was created, everything changed, because then you could get online with people with like mind and skill set that were like, hey, I got one too. I don't know what it is either. And you
Mm-hmm.
send them back and forth to each other. And that was around the same time that I was like, holy shit, like it's illegal to ship live animals in a brown box, And then that's when the industry was like, shoot, shit, live animal shipping. And that's when it really was like a known thing. They've always been doing it, but like
Yeah.
that's when it became a white box, FedEx, UPS, like that's when it became a thing. And then the world of trading happened. And I got a bunch in from like 10, 15 other people. I went to a couple ATS meetings, which is American Tarantula Society. It used to be held down in Arizona and a couple different places. And then it just fizzled away because nobody gave a shit anymore, because all the people that really created and made that thing were old ass dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And they got old and started walking with a cane, and they couldn't go on road trips, dude. Like they weren't partying, doing road trips and studying spiders anymore. And it just fizzled and fell apart. And now today it's just a thing of the past.
Sarg
But
and I have very briefly talked about trying to bring something similar back.
yeah, I spoke with Andrew Smith about it several times, and he was like, I don't understand why you haven't done it. And I'm like it's just the want, the need. The only reason the tarantula community is where it is because the way American mindset is of the newest, biggest, bestest fashion. Like half the people collect tarantulas because they want to have one because all their friends do, and they want to be cool and make posts and blah blah blah. And it's like then they end up getting the spiders they wanted. And then how many times I buy collections? I went to New Bedford the other day and bought a collection off a guy, and I was like, dude, this I'm not enjoying this. But like, I'm really glad that you thought of me, that you
Mm-hmm.
supported me to like come out and take your spiders from you. And it's like, do you know how many times a year that I do this? And people are like, I wished I knew what I was doing. I wish that I had known you before you're buying my spiders off of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only reason that I am here to this day and where I'm at today with spiders is because of someone like me that blessed me with that gift.
Mm-hmm.
And showed me that tarantulas are so much more vast and different. And if you really dedicate to what it is to keep a tarantula, uh, it will take care of you. I don't explain it. I can't harp on that all the time, but like that's what it is. And I was so aggravated and frustrated, I almost stopped dealing with pokies altogether. I was like, you know what, sub Fusca this, fuck that. I don't want no Sri Lanka. And that was right around the time that everybody's like, oh, you hybridize spiders, you're a sack of shit. And I, at the time, like, I didn't know. Like,
Right.
there was no book. There was no book that told you OBT was OBT. Like, it was just a fucking orange ass spider from Africa.
Yeah.
And then, like, then you get one that's tan because you went to a show that's, you know, started and it's mature and you breed it with your OBT and you get babies. Like, holy shit. And then it's like, wow, none of the babies live. None of them exit Yule stage. But they were fertile.
Hmm.
You know, like, is that, and then it's like, that fascinated me. I was like, wait a second, hold on a second. Then it was like the knowledge became real. Then people did start making documentaries and books, and there was starting to become this following of invertebrates, and people started really keeping bugs. And this is like way before anybody ever thought that keeping a jumping spider was cute. You know what I mean? Before they wrote books and
Yeah.
child stories about them. Like, we're talking about where everybody wanted to kill spiders, and if you kept them, you were a fucking loser. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's another reason why they call me Dritz. It wasn't to be nice. They're actually like trying to make fun of me, like you spider dork. You know, like like people would make fun of D&D people. You know, um, and it was through that cusp and that change that I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. You know, I did it with Avix. I did it with Aphonopelmas myself too. And then I realized just keeping them and keeping them through this window of non-understanding what was going on and realized that there was change. The very first time that I realized that there were different sub-Fusca was when I had like 30, 40 Highlands that I had gotten from a breeder out of Canada before it was like this big thing that you couldn't do without importing license and everything else. It was just
Yeah.
like easy to do. That's how half the species got here. Like, everybody's like, oh, I only want captive bred. Well, guess what? Every single spider got here as a slave, as a captive, stolen animal.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're a captive bred spider, its relatives are wild caught. That's the only way this is possible. So I knew that had to be done, and so I reached out. Uh, MySpace, Arachnoboards, met a couple dudes in Russia and Poland, mostly Poland. They got a lot of pokey knowledge over there. Germany, and then through the network and things, I realized, okay, there's a species out there of Sofusca that I can't get. Like, there was just no way to get it here and do it right. And that's when it was like impossible to start shipping and importing license and everything got crazy. And um, I didn't know what I had, actually. It was kind of like a mistake. I knew there was always something there that was different. And it wasn't till, shit, I don't know, a couple years ago that I had learned about it. And then I was at an expo show like, fuck, a year ago. And this stranger walks up to my table and is interested in buying spiders, and we start talking, and he's clearly knowledgeable about tarantulas. That's really easy to know when you start talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what do you have for, postal theory? And I was like, oh, I have this and that and that. And he was like, well, have you ever heard of like Pascal? And I'm like, say what? And I'm like, are you talking about like the French morphotypes and stuff? And that's where I go back to this book here, that it wasn't in English at the time. The Chimera Tarantula Breeders book, which was written in French. And there's a whole chunk in here about Sofusca and Gene, and working with Hendrik um, to do DNA sequencing and haplotype, holotype, and figuring out the difference between the two. And that's when they realized, okay, look, there was a French collector that collected a specimen from the wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's Pascal Lessier. Took the specimen into captivity, bred it, produced it. However long that took, who fucking knows? And then it was sold, traded with other Russian people that did the same. And then it was finally brought into Canada. Tarantula Canada is who bought that first wild captive born specimens.
Mm-hmm.
And then they produced them and bred them. And then Martin and his company, they brought them into the United States. So anybody who has a Pascal in the United States, unless they've got some other hookup that I don't know about, that's the only place I know you can get one, or where it came from, is through Canada. through France and
And
Russia.
how long ago was that they were brought into the States from Canada?
2015, 2010.
Okay, so I mean,
2015 is like when I was like, holy fuck, I got to get one of those. But I didn't know it was even like a whole nother thing. I just thought it was like, cool, there's a lowland and a highland. So when you hear the name Sofusca, right? When you hear it, Sofusca, Sofusca, whatever however you want to pronounce it, whatever. When you hear that, there's only one described species, and
right?
that is what they called species Sri Lanka. And then they realized there's a lowland and a highland. And then what Gene and these French dudes discovered is that there are actually two types in those families, kind of like, give you an example, pumpkin patch, like
Yeah.
Aphonopelma formosus, right? There's a large and a small. There's a Klein, there's a Bungogi, and then there's actually different motherfucking species. But there's just like Miranus, Turanoculus miranus, OBT. OBT's OBT, but there's different locales. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you've kept all of them like I have, they are vastly different. Yeah, they're baboon spiders. Yeah, they all breed the same. Yeah, but their triggers, their temperature variations, their differences, their behaviors. Like I don't know if you've ever kept a Botswana or a Mozambique OBT, but they are way more shy and sensitive to light compared to a normal OBT or Usambara or
Yeah, that's the
Tete.
only ones that I've kept is sort of your stock
Very
standard.
different size, behavior, temperature variation and changes. So sorry,
It's weird that Chordatus I've never seemed to really be all that popular, because that was one of the out of the first handful of spiders I kept, one was a Chordatus that a local pet store had. I mean, Chordatus, whether it actually was or not, that's what they had it labeled as. I remember posting it on ArachNerds and being like, what do you guys think this is? And Chordatus seemed to be the general consensus, but it's weird not really seeing those as much.
it's like Lugardi. There's other species and stuff in there, and I guarantee you there's some that we don't even know about. And at the end of the day, so is true with posterior. That's true. I ended up like getting some, and then like was gifted. Going back to the Sofusca thing, which I totally lost my train of thought talking about other bullshit. That's what I'm good at. I was gifted females and males. Like, hey, like I realized that this is what's going on. I don't want to be the one responsible for doing this wrong.
Yeah.
You raise them up, you breed them with what you're breeding and raising up as well. And I was still like on the fence of whether this was actually even like a hybrid. Should we even be talking about this?
Yeah.
Because if you make a post right now, people are like, oh, it's a hybrid. Shame on you. It's like, well, so is the one you got, dude. Because
Right.
I guarantee you're not able to prove the lineage and genetics and holotype of the DNA that you have. And that's what this book talks about. Is that I've actually went as far as, after reading this book, I reached out to Gene and Henrik and asked them myself through all of the research they've done, and both of them to this day feel that Highland, Lowland, Pascal, all of them are hybrids. There is no actual true Bara or species.
You're saying like they're naturally integrated.
There's nothing you can do about it now.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
But what they went to say, and this was what was neat, because after I got off the phone with Gene, I messaged with Henrik and I said, so tell me this, when you were doing your DNA research and blah, 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 I said, did you ever breed them? Did you ever try just to see if you're like doing research to find out if they are different? Wouldn't you actually just like try to pair one up?
Yeah.
Because you know as well as I do, when you put a male in there, he's going to tap and try to breed. If the species is that far apart from each other, they're not going to be receptive to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was a young child, I didn't know much better, man. I would take an avic from a pet store and an avic off the internet and put them together. And once you really start to like get into it in science, like taxonomy, when you finally do get these books and you're reading them, you start to realize that like they will vibrate and tap and like want to breed. But it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I tried to pair my spider, and it's like all she wants to do is eat them. And it's like probably because they're not the same species.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no matter what you do, whether you condition them or whether you do this or that or
It's
feed
just
her or
not gonna
whatever. And it's like, well, why is my nail so big? Well, it's like pumpkin patch big and small. You take
happen.
a large pumpkin patch, which I did when I was a kid because I didn't know. I was like, wow, this motherfucker's big. I want a big male to pair with my girl. Didn't know because she always wanted to eat them. And I was like, let me get this big one, not knowing that there's a large and a small. That was before anybody even knew that that was a thing. And she would tap and bring them all in close, and they would try to breed, and then she would just eat them. Like
Yeah.
they're similar, they're tolerable due to location, and that's what and that's another whole topic that I'd like to get into. Also, would be what makes it spider communal. There's such a controversy about communal spiders, and
Yeah, I mean, let's get into that because I'm curious what your thoughts are. I
so
think we've talked about it a good bit on previous episodes. Is sort of like there's a difference between like truly communal, like you see with Arizona bark scorpions, for example, and then there's tolerating being in a group.
yeah.
There's two very different things.
So what I think is in the world of Theraphosidai, there is no such thing as communal tarantula. No species communal. And I say this because the true definition of the word communal means that you and I will live in unison together and thrive, not survive, thrive, procreate, and get better, like stronger, smarter, evolution and change. We're not tolerating each other. We're not, so tarantulas are cannibalistic by nature. All spiders are cannibalistic by nature, first of all. So when you have two tarantulas next to each other and they don't eat each other, it's not always just because they're not hungry. Um, and that's what I personally think what makes tarantulas so unique is that they're evolved way past the standard bug, because clearly there's no cognitive thought, but there is definitely recognition and there is brain matter power happening there.
Yeah.
They've evolved. Yeah, they're very stimulus based. They're ectothermic. They react to the environment and everything around them, and so do we, man. We're just that's what makes us the apex. Is like we're smart, we're intelligent on a whole nother level. But when it comes to Theraphosidai, that's why they're not true spiders. There's characteristics about them that make them superior. And one of those being is breeding behaviors and the ability to use the environment to live as long as possible, not live until the end of the season, which benefits the species, but to
Right.
be able to surpass that,
Yes.
which requires intelligence and evolutional change, like which changes you from being a regular old true spider. True spiders are bomb,
I never thought about that. It's
but
dead
true
on.
spiders don't have hooks on the end of their feet. True spiders struggle to climb upside down on glass. Tarantulas don't. They have pads on their feet. They've evolved to be characteristically superior. So that also follows suit with the way they behave around in the world around them. So when they're breeding, you're going to get very unique behaviors and traits about them. One thing I've realized from keeping all spiders, and one thing as a young child, I was not allowed to keep a lot of spiders, so I had to like hide them. So we typically tried to keep them as small and as comfortable as possible. And as you really quickly learn from keeping many, many spiders, is they actually prefer that. Everybody gets this big old 10-gallon tank and puts this, GBB in it. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. It'll work. But it's also a lot harder to control the environment and give it what it needs and make sure that it eats its food and blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes to breeding conditions and conditioning, it's a lot harder to do that in this big old tank where they're roaming around freely. And that's when I started to realize that, okay, every spider under those conditions reacts differently. And then you start to find out that there's spiders, and you would only know this the first time that people started realizing that tarantulas were communal was only because they had a bunch of babies all at once.
Yeah.
Nobody was buying all these adults and putting them together and being like communal. they had babies, and they're like, wow, they do so well together. And then if you raise them up and they molt a few times, you start to see this community action happen.
Mm-hmm.
When you keep them in the cup, you'll see like all these little tunnels. I don't care what species it is. It could be Balfour, it could be NC, all the ones they claim, gigas that are communal. Every species will start off as a cluster and venture off from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So based on your environment, based on how drastic it is to survive in that place, if it's really, really hard to find water and food where you live, wouldn't it be better to hang out with everybody else who's looking for water and food,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to venturing out into a place where who fucking knows what's going to happen? So you have the word that now comes up is tolerability. Like these spiders have evolved now to the next step. Instead of just being born and let's just like, and they scatter and run for the hills, over thousands of years, they realized if we stick together in mom's nest that she's built to keep ants and other predators and wasps away, we can actually grow to a beneficial enough size to where we're not going to die as
have a better
quickly.
chance, right?
Opposed to like sea turtles who hatch and they got to fucking run for it,
Yeah.
right? And they're fucked no matter what. You could
Yeah.
get snapped up by a person or a seagull could carry you away.
Yeah.
But if sea turtles were able to hatch out into a spider web and be protected for the next 6 months, they're going to have a much better start when they hit the ocean, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and that's kind of what I thought as far as, you know, when you see Poecilotheria in particular, and people talk about keeping those communally. I think that's much more of a case of like they're communal up into till a point for that same reason that you were just talking about, to where it's like we have no reason to leave. Like we have resources here. You know, evolutionarily speaking, like they don't have. There's no point in them venturing out immediately.
So think of it like this, okay? Think of it like this. If you were to have a 20-gallon fish tank or a setup, right, and you put 20 pokies in there and you let them all grow up and raise up, if you were to go into their natural wild habitat, you're never. I don't care how vast and far you search, you're never going to find that amount of space with that many in it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, like in Vietnam and different Asian places, and especially in like deep, dark, quiet forests, you'll see a hillside, and there's, you know, they're within close proximity, but they're still within like a arm reach.
And then there's neighbors.
They're tolerable. So listen, if you're in a place like a Balfour, right, Socotra Island, it's brutal there, bro. Mm-hmm. It's brutal, harsh place, man. You got to be a tough son bitch to not die there. Humans couldn't do it without help, you know. So if you're a spider that survives in a place like that, and you're gonna have young, it's better to have less of them. That's why Balfour sacs are small. Mm-hmm. They're sac hammock laying spiders, so they lay them in the nest, but they're tied off because of tidal and torrential and stormal weather that would just carry that egg sac away. If mama had to run away because of some catastrophic storm, that egg sac's still going to be there, mounted and safe, you know, because it's tied to the ground or in the hole, right? If they were to hatch out, it'd be better to not have 1,000 of them that are just brainless and scatter. Wouldn't it be better to have 30 of them, 40 mm-hmm. of them, 50 of them that are instinctually like, fuck it, I'm sticking down. Yeah. And they actually will hunker. And that's why I tell people all the time, when you get an egg sac, don't just dump it out. People are like, oh, I pulled the egg sac early, and they set up this fucking pantyhose water thing and they dump them out. It's like you literally just did the exact opposite of what they perfected over the last 100 million years of making that fucking sac. That sac protects it from elements, mold spores, predators, like every water, humidity, temperature. Leave it in the sac until it's time to pull it, and then crack it open and let them emerge on their own. And if you do that, they will stick together, and you'll see. You do that 1,000 times, hatching them out of cups, bro. You will start to recognize species that are like, wow, like we're buddies, bro. And they'll eat together even, bro. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as they both become like starting to get a little bit of size, they'll branch off and they got their own thing, you know? So I started to study and play with that when I was a kid. And people were like, Balfour communal, this and that. And I would be like, cool. I'd have a Balfour sac and I'd leave the whole sac together, see what happened. I'd take another Balfour sac and I'd take 10, 10, 10, and 10. And I would put them under different conditions. And then I would take 5 and raise them up until they're like 2 or 3 instar, and then I would separate them into twos and see what the probability was of them eating each other and stuff like that. And what I found is some species were ruthless.
Yeah.
You know, like cobalt blue, man. Wow.
Oh yeah, that doesn't.
You know, they will just maul each other. They give no fuck.
Yeah.
At 1 instar, they will start eating each other.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also found is that in order to survive in that jungle, you're gonna have to start out as a ninja. So if your ninja brother can already eat you, you ain't gonna survive the Vietnamese jungle anyway. So you might as well feed him and be stronger. So they become tolerable. So then you get like Pokey, which is a very harsh environment, man, where they live, dude. There's not much there.
Mm-hmm.
It don't rain that much, and there's a lot of harshness going on. So when you do hatch out, why not tolerate each other as long as fucking possible? You're not sexually mature anyway to where you need to start being that way. If you're starving and there's not enough food, they will be cannibalistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have at times, because out of curiosity, like I said, like learning how this works is like, what happens if you just don't feed it Balfour Sac? What happens if you just didn't know there was one hatched and you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
You end up with like 2, 3 really big, fat, healthy ones,
Mm-hmm.
even though they were communal for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
If you took 30 Balfour, bro, and put them in a cup and you left them and never fed them ever, other than like just misting and environment and all, they will eat each other down until there's one big bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself proves that is the definition of communal, is that a community will not eat each other down to being one sole member, because you're not a community anymore. You're a cannibal.
Right.
So there is no such thing as a community tarantula. It is false. It is untrue. And if you can say otherwise, prove it. But they're cannibalistic, but they will tolerate each other based on environment and based on evolution to survive that environment. So you'll get some species that are better at it than others. You'll get some species like LP. When they hatch out of the sack, bro, you got 2,000 motherfuckers that scatter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't put the lid on that night, guess what? You're finding LPs in your upstairs bathroom by the time they're 2i. You know what I mean?
That from personal experience?
Maybe. All right, hey, real facts though. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be. I've probably kept and killed more spiders than I'm proud to say, but like I didn't do it on purpose. I did it with a full-hearted intention of like, whoops, my bad. Like, how can I make this better? Like, holy shit, that was fucking dumb. And like beat yourself up all year because you fucked that up, and nobody's got a male. So you gotta like buy slings and do it again. And like fucking 10 years later, you're finally like, oh my God. And like, you know, now there's this community, bro. And that's why people are like, Dritz got a male. If you need a male, hit Dritz, right? Because, bro, I grew up my whole life with nobody having a male, and I needed to know. I needed to find out what I did wrong. And nobody was talking about this stuff. Nobody gave 2 fucks about like the behavioral reasons that tarantulas do what they do. Why a Balfour sews their sac to the burrow, you know, like why spiders become arboreal instead of fossorial. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason for that. It's not because they fucking wanted to. It's because that was the best choice to survive.
Yeah, I don't think you can have anything be a coincidence when it comes to evolution.
Nah. So you're never going to have a cannibalistic species or cannibalistic animal that's communal. You're going to have toleration of each other. Like I tolerate a lot of people, man, when I just want to slap them and walk away. But like I'm tolerable because of my environment and the lifestyle I live in. That's a simple example. Like tarantula will become tolerable and communal like because they have to, because of what you're doing to them. If you put a pokey in a little ass cage with 10 other pokies, they're going to do their very best not to kill their best chance at survival as a species.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to do everything they can to like tolerate each other. But if like I'm fucking hungry and there's nothing, I'm a bigger male.
If the resources are there and there's no need to cannibalize, and they're not going to. I mean, it's the same with people. Like if zombie apocalypse ever happens and food starts running out, like I guarantee you there's going to be some groups, just like in The Walking Dead,
I will kick your fucking door in and take your oatmeal. You're big.
Yeah.
Right. But listen to this. The first time I ever saw 2 males fight each other was the first time that I was like, okay, this is there's just so much we don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much about them, and everybody's like, "Oh, I've bred curly hairs and blah blah." I was like, "But breed them 100 times, and then talk to me about how
Mm-hmm.
boring they are." Yeah, it's a repetitive, easy ass thing. Everybody's fucking got them, but
Man,
honestly,
though, if
nobody breeds Samanis, man. But that's one of my favorites.
I
Nobody breeds Hati Hati because like everybody's fucking got one. Like, what? That's my favorite spider, man. Like,
I don't know if you listened to previous episodes, but like there was a point in time where I had pretty much no snakes and almost nothing but spiders and scorpions. And then I took a break and got rid of everything except a regalis I had raised up since it could fit on my thumbnail. And at that point, back then, like stuff like Brachypelma, your quote unquote basic stuff, especially like Aphonopelma, like brown spiders really did nothing for me. I didn't have a whole lot of interest in it. I was like, I like old world stuff. I like Poecilotheria specifically the most. Like they were cool, they're sexy, all that good stuff. And then, anything else that sort of wasn't in that realm, I just didn't have any interest in. But now, sort of coming back to it within the last, year or so, it's kind of the opposite. Like I still love Poecilotheria. That's still going to be my favorite group, like bar none. But now I have some classy. I have Eratum. I have that Simani. I have I have a Vegans again. I had Vegans years ago, but like
I have a couple of clips for you. Don't forget about that.
I'm enjoying those species more than I was enjoying OBTs and the Haplopelma, and like there's just something so much more enjoyable about those to me now. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but like
you know what it is that it's actually
that Simani's awesome. Like that's a great spider. That's why I want more because I'm enjoying that one so much. Same with the classy. Like I love classy. Anybody that's listening to the show knows.
Tend to shy away from all the ones that are classified as staples or like, oh, it's like, okay, I'm a tarantula keeper. I got a collection. Everybody knows, like, if I got a collection, you know what, like, some of those are going to be. To be able to say, I got a collection, right? People tend to shy away from the ones that, like, everybody's got because, like, everybody's got it. But, like, there's actually species that, like, everybody's got, they don't know a fucking thing about. Like Homeoma chilens. Like, nobody knew shit about that spider, and they were, like, tater chips. If you had a tarantula, you had one of those little things.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had one of those, man. People that didn't even like tarantulas bought one because it was $10, and now they're hundreds of dollars for slings. It's like because nobody gave a shit, and it's like everybody's like, oh, don't breed, good luck. Oh, you bred LP, shame on you, good luck. And it's like, what do you mean? Like I've never in my life bred a spider and produced babies and been like, oh my god, what am I gonna do with these?
Yeah.
Like the minute that I have like slings that I can't get rid of, I literally go to the expo and everybody comes to the table, one for you, one for you, one for you. Like, oh, little kid goes by, he's like, spiders. And she's like, no, I don't want him to have it. I'm like, here, put it in your pocket.
Take 5.
Take it.
Well, Dave Fisher put it best.
That is our duty as keepers, is to make sure that no matter what, we don't destroy the Rosea and Portera and like all those poor spiders, bro, that were raped and pillaged for our pleasure and now have nowhere to call home other than as captive slaves of chaos and money dealings. And like, I'm proud to say that I have spiders that nobody gives two shits about, bro, but like generations of them. Like mama raising this one to a mama and that one to a mama and sending my males across the country, like Pete Camerjai. Like nobody gives a shit about Trinidad chevrons. Like, cool, they're like $2-3 a piece if you buy a bunch. Like, cool. I'll raise up babies and send a male across the country for free and let you breed it and produce babies. And I was like, bro, just send me a couple back so I can raise them up. And that in itself is the sustainment, man. And if you approach the hobby with that care and love, you're not going to always win. Somebody sends you a male and it doesn't breed, or it's like, wow, fucking bitch molted out. Like, hey, it happens. But like at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is that when you have babies, it's not how much can I sell these for? It's like, hey, this one's not out there. Nobody has them. Like, for instance, I'm very fortunate to we finally have Saba Red Sack. We just did Valhalla. We have slings. We only got a couple. Like even Bach Ma, very, very few people produce captive bred Bach Ma.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can just go to Spider Shop and buy one for $30, and it's an adult female, you know, like, but like in 30 years from now, there will be none. It'll be a Homeoma chilense.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will have a Peruvian flame. Nobody will have one unless it's $400 or $500 or because of that right there. So it's like,
Yeah.
I implore people, if you have males, reach out to the community. If you don't want it, I will take it. I will find a home for it, even if I don't need it. I know 100 people like me that need it, and we will produce it. And if they don't, we'll all win and we lose together. Shit, I can't say it much better than that.
Yeah, Dave Fisher. At one point, I was watching one of his videos a couple weeks or months
I
ago,
love
and
Dave,
he was
man. I love that dude.
talking about
His passion.
Simani in particular, and basically like just because they're common doesn't mean we can
That they're not amazing.
that too, but also that we can't just not breed them because of that. Like
Because everybody has one. Who gives a fuck? I'm
like,
gonna produce
that's
LP
what
every
happened.
year.
That's the reason we had the situation with Rosea happen, is because everyone was like, oh, I can get one whenever I want, and B, you know, they're cheap, they're common, everyone's gonna have some.
That's stupid.
He's like, you can't let that like that shouldn't be the reason why we should not be keeping these going. He's like, there's always gonna be a need for that kind of stuff, and so it's like,
well, listen, like this, like, okay, let's say you're a tarantula keeper and you're just a hobbyist. Like, you're not doing this to like make money or to, you know, be on the level of us where it's like our life's work. Like, dude, I sleep eating shit spiders, bro. Like, I'm getting slapped on the back of the head all the time because she's like, pay fucking attention, man. Like, put your phone down, you know? Like, I am immersed.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You don't have to be on that level, but if you keep spiders, whether you raise up a sling and it's male or female or not, you don't have to breed your spider. Like, don't. If you don't want to, that's fine. But if you have a male, once he matures, enjoy him. Reach out to the community in the groups that you're in and let people know you have one. If you have trouble trusting or you don't know people, do it vocally in the groups. There is such a big community now to where if you're a sack of shit, people are going to know it.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect, man. Like, hey, I'm the worst at like answering my phone and getting back to people, dude. But I get like 1,000 calls a day, 1,000 texts a day about people who want to trade and learn. And like, you know how many texts a day I send of just like pictures out of books and like weather maps to like help people understand why their OBT won't breed with that male? It's like, I don't make any money from that. Like, just, I implore people, like, if you keep spiders, focus on that part. That is so magical. When you start to do that, the world just opens up. Like, it just becomes this like never ending rabbit hole of new people and friends like you guys. Like, I met you. You know how I found out about you guys? You had him on your show the other day.
Phil?
And he came over to my house and like he was introduced to me from somebody that like does jumping spiders and was interested in breeding regalis. And like, I was like, well, I have a female that I just bred. I could like send her to you, you know, and like, and then he got a cobalt blue that was wild caught from a show. Didn't know no better because he wasn't on this level of the understanding. And he was like, what do I do? And he reached out to her and she's like, hey, holler at Dritz. Because I don't even want anything. Like, just to know that like you have that in the community. That is what the community is, man. And if you know that you have spiders that can be used, get them to the people that can help you, man.
Yeah.
There are people out there that are bad. There are people that are going to take advantage of you. And there is a core group of people in this community, man, that you can grow your collection infinitely by being a part of the community and just helping grow the knowledge and spreading the love of the males. If you buy 5 slings and 2 of them become males, don't hold on to them because you're like pissed you had males. Like, take a picture of him, put him in the group, be like, males free, like free agent. Like,
yeah,
at the very least, you end up with some slings and everyone else does too.
Yeah.
And then it won't be $300 for a Homeoma chilense or any of the other spiders, you know, like Birupies. Like, there's so many species out there that like people only buy because they're wicked expensive and they want one, so they have it in their collection.
Yeah.
But the only reason they're wicked expensive in the way they are is because nobody gives 2 fucks about the spider. You know what I mean? Like, so when I buy spiders, when I bring in spiders, my first goal before I never sell a spider unless I've bred it before. That is one thing that most people don't know, is if you've ever bought a spider for me, you bought it for me and I produced it. Like, if I sell another spider or trade off another spider, it was within that community of people who did that too.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And some people don't even want to get into that, and I get that. Like, some people just want to have a couple badass spiders and like know everything about them and stuff and raise them up, and that is totally cool as well. But it's for those types of people that shouldn't have to pay $400 for a P Metallica female.
Yeah.
It's just asinine, bro. It's just not fair.
What was
It's wrong.
the first species you bred?
Ooh, that's a good one. So my very first spider ever was, of course, Grammostola porteri, and which everybody calls the Rosea now, but they're actually not. They're two locales, just like Grammostola species north, which
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been classified yet. That was my first spider. And then the very first spider I ever bred was kind of on accident. Remember, I was talking to you about like there was no breeding books, there was nothing as far as information and how this works and blah blah blah. And I was just buying spiders of all ages until they were ready to breed and putting them together and see what happens, So a lot of times they were wild caught spiders too, you know. And a lot of times you didn't even know if it was success because of what you did right or wrong or anything like that. But the very first spider that I ever bred was cobalt blue, and then the first one I ever produced was OBT, and then the first one that I ever actually did where I was like, hey, raised up babies that I bought, male, female, conditioned her, landed a male. She was receptive and tapping and wanted to breed, not just like forcing it down her throat like some people do and hold the female and let them mate like this, or wasn't forced breeding, was Hati Hati. Yep,
Okay.
which wasn't even a described species at the time,
Mm-hmm.
Um, nobody gave two shits about it.
Yeah.
Really, there was even to this day. Like most people are like, "What's that?" People don't even know the spider. And if you've never kept one before, I highly recommend you get one. And if you haven't had
Oh,
one
Phil
and you
raves
want
about
one,
his in the ArachNerds chat all the time. Phil loves his.
he came over. Yeah, Phil came over here and bred his first Hati Hati with me. He brought his girl over, and I was like, "Yeah, man, bring her over. I got like 6 males. We'll figure this out." And yeah, he left like a believer. He was like, "Ah, it's amazing."
Yeah.
Just the behavior and like incredible spider. And if you don't have a hottie hottie, hit up the Underdark. I will give you one. I got that many. So I wished it would have been like spiders that actually mattered, like spiders that actually need the help.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other thing too, not to get off on another thing, but I always found it fascinating how. Have you ever been to like the streets of like Thailand or like the streets of Vietnam and
No.
like been there and ate lunch and like walked around the city of this place? There are street vendors with piles of like deep fried tarantulas.
I've seen like Travel Channel
And
stuff.
I'm like, I was like amazed. I was like, school stuff there and like just, bugs in general and like spider research and shit. And I to this day, as much as we affect the natural flow of tarantulas in the wild and how much people in that part of the world collect them and eat them for food, but also collect them and sell them into the pet trade as adult females. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
wicked easy to get an adult female cobalt blue. It's
Yeah.
wicked easy to get an adult female Von Worthy or Longipus or Minax or any of those Asian. But dude, you go to like the streets of Vietnam and like different places, like they are like eating them like tater chips, like deep frying them and like just and they do in the vendors deep fry and set up these stations every day. How in like God's name do they sustain that population? Because if you were to wander into those jungles a mile or two away from these said street vendors, there's sure as shit not like tarantulas everywhere. So who is going out there and collecting these spiders every single day to fulfill these street vendors' needs? Down to like even the crickets, the katydids, the ants.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. I never could wrap my head around that
Mm-hmm.
because like I immediately wanted to be like, well, where the fuck are all these spiders coming from? Like, where do they get these massive amounts of tarantulas every day when it took me a week to find one? You know, like,
Surely they've got spots. I mean,
right.
that's one of the only
And that
things
is
that
the
would make
definition of
sense.
why. That is the definition of why the species we call ESA or special aren't here anymore. You know.
Well, that was another thing that I wanted to get into was like your thoughts on ESA and Pacillotheria sort of specifically, because it seems like they were really late to the game on putting those on that list.
Yeah, and so I think, I mean, like I said, this is my theory. I'm sure there's going to be many people that would dispute this in their own way or experiences, but from my experience in the industry as a whole, you know, years of keeping them, trading them, brokering them, selling them, vending them, breeding them, every aspect of their lives to this day. Um, you know, I've kept and have all the available species you can get, breeder females down to slings,
Mm-hmm.
including the Pascal we've discussed. Um, I personally think the ESA laws do absolutely nothing to protect the animal. It's a crying shame because I really think that it boils down no more than getting your vehicle inspected and blah, blah, blah. And I get it. You get your vehicle inspected to make sure that it's safe for the roads and for everyone else around it. I get that, right? Cool. You can make up laws and expenses and costs, and you know we can go on and all that. But when it comes down to ESA laws and why the Fish and Wildlife started these types of laws, it wasn't to protect this spider from extinction. It really wasn't. It was for relationships, political reasons, because that country is trying to do ecological things or not, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about control. You see that there's this influx of business, millions and millions of dollars coming in off of this animal that's being pillaged out of this country that by rights should be getting some type of revenue because it's from their land. Like if we export
Yeah.
corn or what, you know, whatever, we should be by rights, it's ours, we should benefit from it, right? And then it wasn't happening. And then when it became a thing and they're already, it's too deep now it's already an industry. Now you've got to control it. What do? You make them illegal,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are being sold and bought and kept. And it's like, honestly, it's like they've got ESA laws on Brachypelma smithi, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is like one of the most common tarantulas on the face of this earth. There is
That's
no
what I don't
reason,
understand is you would think that when they were in the process of putting
and
these
and
proposed that they would look
every
at the
single
industry
law,
and say these are commonly bred, like these aren't being
it's not
smuggled in any numbers
right,
that would matter at this
right.
point. So like why are we even bothering?
So the ESA laws are supposed to protect the ones because when the ESA law thing started, many years back in the trade, right? When the
Yeah.
community was really starting to get into like, we want some shit from Africa, man, or Brazil. That's when it changed, and that's when they realized, holy shit, there's a business in this, and there's no business in the United States that doesn't have the thumb of America on it. First of all, second, it wasn't about protecting the animal from where it's from. It's about the ability of all this millions of dollars that are coming in from another country that we can't tax and keep and have. We don't even know what's happening. Wait a minute. Oh, it is happening. Let's make it illegal. Now we can tax size it. Now we can make license and permits and requirements and things. And then it's like, okay, cool. In their native land, they are endangered. But
Mm-hmm.
in their native land, nobody is making them endangered other than the people changing their environment, which
Yeah.
is the same people that are enforcing these ESA laws. The same people that put plantations through all of India and create all these corn, all these sugar cane fields, and all these fields that just destroy their population are also run and in collaboration with the governments that make these animals protected. so that the land now becomes protected, and now they have complete control over it, without any regard to the spider. Because the spider, like for instance, there's more captive bred than there will ever be in the wild of many species.
Yeah.
Like there's millions of versicolors hatching in the United States every day. Like I've had 3, 4, 500 versicolors in the last week alone. Like it would be retarded to say that that's an endangered species.
Yeah.
In the wild, it's endangered, but it shouldn't roll over into
You can't compare the two.
It's not the same. You have a captive animal and you have a wild animal. If they're going to create ESA laws, it should be specifically focused on wild caught animals. So when you go to an expo show and you go to a vendor's table like myself or anyone else selling tarantulas as captive bred, and they got all different kinds of slings and babies, and they're all like captive, and then you go down to the end of the table and they got like 52 iguanas, 32 turtles, and 62 dead fucking Uromastics, and like a dying sloth over there, and like this lady's holding reticulated python, which is illegal to even have. And then you got like 2 tegus with permit stickers on them, and then there's like 50 fucking 7, aviculary M1s that are like in deplorable conditions and dying. And then they're like, or they're all sold as Mexican red knee Hemorais, and they're all about that big, just enough to be big enough, and half of them are Smithies, and they're ESA animals. But like they're selling them in that state, you're buying them there, right? But if they were to ship them, like how come you can ship ArachNerds but you can't ship Miranda? How
Yeah,
come you
it's
can
just
ship?
goofy. It's just bizarre.
It's
It
not
doesn't make
real,
any
bro. It's
sense.
not real. If I can ship you an adult female Brachypelma smithy, which is an ESA protected animal, anywhere else in the world, just like Subfusca lowland, any Sri Lankan species, the same exact laws are in place for both animals. I have sent so many smithies over the border, and nobody gives 2 fucks. Do you know how many smithies you buy wholesale? I can guarantee you can go to like every single wholesaler right fucking now, and they got smithy babies for sale, and they'll ship them to you. But then at the bottom of the list, it says, Sofusca, or it
Patata,
says
Texas.
Patata, but
Yeah.
Texas only,
Yeah.
right? Same fucking thing. It's just because that's what the industry will carve you out for. You don't want to get, nobody wants to get blacklisted because they're selling ESA pokies through the mail, but they'll send you a Smithy the same day. Well, they told you they can't send you a Patata.
Well, then
Like,
it's also sort of the whole
it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
principle of
There's
like
nothing there. It doesn't
you can
exist other than the power to control people's mind in the curve and the wave, man. That's it. You make something illegal, it's worth more.
but is it? Because if you can still give them to people,
That's what I mean.
what's
So
the
what you
point?
see,
Like
you
you're
know
not
what you see. You're right. Sorry to talk over you. I was just you're right. People will be like, cool. Oh, buy this spider, that. They're like, oh, I want to buy this, and this. They're cool. I'll get your freebie. Will
yeah.
be a Highland. I'm just gonna gift it to you, but you still, it's through a transaction of money.
It's
It's no different.
redundant.
It's no
It's like
different than
saying
going
I'm
to an
gonna
expo show and you drive to Texas and buy it at an expo show and then you drive it home to Massachusetts. He could have just fucking shipped it. You still transported the fucking purchased spider. It's bullshit. And you bought a Brachypelma Smithy at the show too. Or no, you got home and he shipped it to you. What the fuck? ESA is like the fakest, dumbest thing. It's just a
I'm gonna
facade
give
that they
you a
put in.
free Miranda or Fasciata, but the box is gonna be $200.
Right. It's stupid.
Shipping box.
While meanwhile in Sri Lanka they're planting more and more sugarcane fields by the second,
Now more and more yeah.
which have no change or effect toward the United States populations of captive bred pokey. Like I produce and breed every single species available in the world that you can actually get, and like what the fuck? Like why are we worried about protecting them in their natural environment? That should probably be a law there, not here.
Do
Because
you
if they're
have
here, that
Fasciata?
means they were brought here. They're captive. They're slaves. They're slave animals here. They're captive, bro. So if it's a captive animal, you can't ESA protect it. It's not like you brought the white rhino from Africa and it's the only one left in
Right.
San Diego. Like that, okay, that's a little different. But like nobody's bringing wild caught pokies here and then like stealing them in. That's what the ESA laws should be for and for only. If you're going to cross them in the United States, they need to be taxed and regulated and understood that way, and then protected that way. Because once they're in the United States, they're United States
They're
captive.
not
Because
going back.
even if you bring a wild caught animal into the United States as a captive, animal, or a wild caught animal, and bring it in, it's now captive. Even if she lays a sack, her babies are captive born.
Mm-hmm.
So that now makes them not ESA.
Right.
Because ESA is protecting wild genetics. So if I bring an ESA animal in and I breed it here and produce babies, it's not an alien. It is native,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it now just
Naturalized citizen.
surpasses. It's not endangered because it's sustained here. That is the whole purpose of what Underdark is. We bring in animals that people aren't breeding because they're ESA. We're captive breeding them here. Because of the way the community is, you're never going to ship one of those animals because you'll be crucified. For why? I couldn't explain to you. Because do you know how many people bring in like wild caught cobalt blues and escals, and then or Aphonopelmas caught in the United States, which is illegal, and then they let it hatch out babies, and then they're like selling them at shows? Like it's no different. It's the same thing. So the law should only protect them coming here. So when imports are coming in, if you don't have the ESA permits and the right regulations for what it is that they're coming in for, they should be protected that way. Once they're here, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Like once that illegal alien comes in and has a kid here, it's an American citizen.
Yep.
You might still be an alien, but your kid ain't. So how can you still say that captive bred subfusca are ESA? They're not endangered because they're sustained here. They are now American citizens. As an animal, they have rights. So I don't understand it.
So
That's my logic on it.
point.
That's my logic on it. That's my theory on it. I'm sure a lot of people are like going to harp and not agree with what I have to say on that, but these laws don't do anything but make money for the people making the laws and do absolutely nothing of protecting the actual spider's care and well-being and future and legacy as a sustained animal, other than making it harder for the species to actually be produced.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder to produce this animal and create populations because of these dumb laws.
Yeah.
When they were already here and bred anyway, and they're captive born. So they no longer are endangered because they're sustained bred in America. It's a whole new population, technically, right? So the Azark guys too, they fucking love this. I've talked to them at shows before, and they're like, "Oh my god, we gotta like make a video." And I'm like, dude, like, you know how many people are gonna like hate me for just saying all that I just said? Because I got friends that work in fish and wildlife and stuff too,
with any level of common sense is gonna see the exact same thing in the situation. So it's like if someone's gonna get upset about that, it's kind of silly.
Yeah, but then it's like, well, it's like, do you own a Subfusca? Well, guess what? Once upon a time, its relative was wild caught, and everybody's like, well, I only sell captive bred spiders. Good, but just so you know, all those genetics and all of their entire family lineage were slaves brought captively captured and brought here against their will to be your pet, and now their children are your pet. Like, no matter what you own, no matter any spider in your collection is at one point or another,
somewhere down the line. Yeah.
So the ESA law is not actually doing anything about that, because, like I said, I could breed Subfusca tomorrow. Like, I got a bunch of Mirandas, and like, if I can't sell them because it's illegal, right? But like, they were born in America, they're American, and their species is sustained here by that act. Like, in by rights. If anything, make a law, make a permit to where you have to like validate and prove that you're producing them captively, and now they're no longer endangered species because they're United States populations.
Verified.
Our United States populations of versicolor are not endangered.
It's also wild to me that of all the Bacillotharia, like Metallica, were never put on that list, even with those being the most popular.
I don't know if you heard that last part, but
I didn't.
So yeah, at the end of the day, ESA should protect animals coming in that are wild and coming from these endangered regions. Once they come to America, they're no longer endangered. They're coming in and they're being protected because they're your pet. And then you choose to breed them and procreate and make more. You've now sustained. The whole key is sustainment population. So, like, there may not be 20,000 Sofuska lowlands in the native habitat, but I guarantee you there's 20,000 of them in the United States.
Yeah.
I got like 600 myself. You know what I mean? Like,
got half
so,
of them.
Yeah, so like, how can you say that this animal needs protected because it's endangered? It's only endangered outside of this bubble.
Then to get even more backwards is like the captive breeding that is being done with those that are coming in is stopping the very thing that law is put in place to prevent.
Yes, and that's what like that's what started the whole Underdark thing is like, I want to breed the spiders that everybody's making bank on bringing wild caughts in. Everybody at one point it was like Celadonias, Aphonopelma, Protistopelmas. Everybody had them coming in from Brazil, from Caesar and Arachnophilia and what's his fucking name, Pierre, and like that whole nightmarish thing like that. But like, dude, those spiders have been in America way before Pierre was bringing them in. Just so you know, everybody was talking shit about that dude. He just was doing it loud and got caught. But there is a lot of it. I don't say no names, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I had a Celedonia before Pierre was even on the map. So it's been happening. It's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do about it. But the ESA laws aren't doing anything to protect it. Do you know how many people import shit? I know a lot of people that import shit, and there's stuff in there that they shouldn't have. But like,
how much of that is brought in under the guise of like, oh, it was misidentified?
Oh, duh. Why do you think they intentionally send in so much shit unidentified? Because that way you can. And there's nobody that's actually pulling that box at customs and go open it up and nobody's gonna be there like Dritz, like, oh, regalis, oh this, oh that.
Yeah.
They're gonna look at it and be like, cool, Indian spiders, your paperwork's in order, cool, bang. And all of them are hunams, there wasn't a single regalis in there. It was all hunams and vitatas and all kinds of different shit. So the ESLs ain't doing shit. It's actually just this cover so that you can operate and you know how hard it is to get like an import and ship license? Like, you don't just wake up tomorrow and start shipping shit from Germany, It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's a very policed, very gatekept community as far as that goes, because last thing you want to know is that this dude with all the wild caught stock, half his shit didn't get here properly. And half the people in they actually are contributing to that problem, and they're the ones that are complaining and bitching about the ESA laws. And they don't even realize that the babies they got were from a wild caught female, Yeah. So to reinvent, like I said, the ESA thing is nothing. It has no effect on anything in the community whatsoever, other than creating this red tape and this fear that you have to go through, because it doesn't do anything to protect or protect the spider, the community, the longevity, the sustainment of their species, their legacy as an animal.
It is an
all it does is make sure that the right people have control. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's actually a crying shame, So that's what we try to fix. Is when I do get one of those rare little spiders that nobody has, for instance, like it once was Celadonias, or it can now be like the Harpacteras, or species that people are like, oh, I don't have that one yet, or like spiders that you're not going to just be importing. Those are the ones that we need to try to breed and produce. The ones that everybody is charging $300-$400 for, like species Valhalla, that thank God we were able to just do. Like,
those are cool.
Sackless shit. We only got so many. I'm not going to sell those and just let them go off and die somewhere. I'm going to actually raise them up and breed them, and then get them to other people who have females and produce them. So we have I think I lost you again.
No, you're back.
So yeah.
As far as like when you go to, when we're talking about ESA species and you have people that, myself, for example, like with Ornata, because I used to have Ornata before they got ESA'd, and that's my favorite Poecilotheria that I'd kept. And then I come back, and those are no longer readily available unless you know somebody.
Right.
Like, what is the criteria though? If someone comes to you, like a complete stranger, is like, "Hey, I heard you got X, Y, and Z. You know, how do I get my hands on those?" Like, how do you know who's on the up and up? And I mean, surely you get people that are like, "Hey, I heard you got this," and they want it under the false pretenses of send me 10 of them so I can turn around and sell them or do
So
something shady
the
with them.
way I do it is when it comes to breeding project stuff, any ESA species that I breed or produce, there's no money interacted
Right.
whatsoever. So if
Right.
I send you a Sapusca lowland, I'm loaning it to you. You're using it to breed. If we produce it, we split them together. You pay for your shipping, I pay for mine. No one's profiting from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's pretty much it. And then, like anything else, you have a reputation in the community. It don't take but a second for you to just be blackballed immediately because of the way you're treating others and the way you're operating. Um, if I had a customer come to me and ask me for an ESA species, um, there's a couple factors that come into play. I like to know like who you are, what you are, where you're coming from, why, and I can get you a spider. I would never sell you one. But if you were a collector and you're serious and you love them and you want to breed them and you want to have them and you really are like, hey, I love Pokey, I want to breed them, I want to have them in my life. I would love to try to start breeding them, but I just can't get them. Nobody will sell them to me. Blah 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 blah. I'll send you one. You pay for the shipping, I'll send you one. You're not paying. I'm not making anything from it. It
Mm-hmm.
is completely non-profit. It is for the betterment of the species. There is no breaking the law by doing such. Some people, vendors out there, will sell you spiders and then they give you that one. They'll
Yeah.
sell you 10 sun tigers for twice the price and give you one.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, cool, I get it. I understand. You still didn't sell that spider, blah, blah, blah. But under the pretext of, if I, cool, most people come to me anyway for other shit anyway. And they're like, wow, you have those. Like, cool, I'll send you a Sapuska in there, but you're going to raise him up and that's it. When he's male or female, you're going to send him back, or you're going to put him back into the breeding program, and that's what it means to be a collaborator or a member of Underdark. Like I'm not just some stranger or somebody who's trying to buy one and then resell it or something
Right.
like that, because that's what the ESA laws are trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent the illicit trade of animals that are under threat. And that just goes across the board. Unfortunately, those laws aren't really helping this situation. So I feel like if you're really going to try to police it and you really are involved in doing those things, the only people that should ever be getting one of those from you is because of the person they are and their involvement in their reputation in the community as being somebody who's going to raise that up. And in 5 years, that asshole's still going to be around and be like, dude, it's a boy. I'm like, cool, send him back because I got a female ready to rock. And we make more and then we produce them. And then once the population grows, I feel like the ESA thing should not apply because the sustained American population, United
Mm-hmm.
States sustainment of that particular species population has been sustained.
Yeah.
It no longer qualifies as ESA. So that means to me, if there is in excess of 10,000 to 20,000 would be great of that species in our country, it's not endangered.
Mm-hmm.
What makes an animal start to become endangered is because in the wild there's less than so many of them left. If there's 20,000 versicolors in the United States everywhere, you can't say that animals in threat of endangerment. Like that's just a joke. Like in the wild it is.
Right.
Okay, great. So make some really gangster laws to protect that fucking environment. Not here where there's plenty of them,
Where they're
you
completely
know,
unrelated. Completely.
completely unrelated. And if we do that right, there's no fucking need for their shit because we got our shit. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? And that would be the only real, true, honorable way to eliminate the whole ESA bullshit. But there's people out there who give no fucks and will go into the wild and yank all these Asian spiders out because everybody wants the new Vietnam Highland or this, that, or the other, or the Veronica or Ho Chi Minh, or like all this. Like they'll just yank them out, and they don't have laws right now. They give no shits. But I guarantee you, the minute that their people start to realize that they're under threat, it'll
Mm-hmm.
become ESA because that's what it's for. Not for them being here already and breeding and making populations. Like we're all set. Like I could call 10 people and get 100 versicolors like right now. There would be no reason at all to put that on the ESA list, which is not. But that also falls in line with like Kimura, like any Aphonopelma. Like I can get Aphonopelmas for like $10, like really nice sized, juicy ones. You know, like what? But it's ESA. You're right.
Yeah.
But everybody does. Everybody buys Mexican ESA animals like it's nothing. But if you mention the word poke, like, oh my god, you're gonna break the law.
Yeah, it is weird that there's that distinction.
It's actually just really stupid. It's actually doing nothing at all whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, are you pretty quick at picking up on who's bullshitting you with that kind of stuff now?
Sorry, I missed what you said. Sorry.
Are you pretty quick at picking up who's bullshitting you with the ESA stuff?
Well, I mean, everybody's gonna want to just hit you up, and now because of social media and the way that the internet is, there is people popping up like every single day, every single night. That's like this new community, and they got this wholesale list and like all this stuff, and yeah, like that's not like I get it. It's an industry. Like you got to make your money. You got to pay your bills. There's our people who have chosen to do this full time and like try to make a living on it, and I see nothing wrong with that. Like good for you, but it's stressful. It's hard, and then like people will tend to start to do stuff that they wouldn't normally do. And you can typically usually right away, especially if you're involved in the groups and and I admin and mod and 20, 30 different tarantula groups, know when somebody's full of shit or they're out to hurt the community and people, and actually not benefit the community.
Yeah. Well, as far as something else that we were planning to get into was you had mentioned gatekeeping earlier.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics.
It definitely seems to be more prevalent in inverts, tarantulas specifically, than it does in reptiles. I feel like in snakes and stuff, it was much more common, a couple of decades ago, but because of the internet and stuff, I don't think it's nearly as common now, but it definitely seems to still be alive and well in spiders.
So I'm sorry, I don't know if it's me or whatever, but it just keeps spinning out on me. But so all right, gatekeeping. I'm guilty of it myself.
How are people doing it?
Okay, so to start off, I was guilty of it too. And I started into the tarantula world of like, I'm gonna make some money doing this, not just I'm gonna go into a show and buy some shit. You immediately get this sense of, because tarantulas are tarantulas and you can only buy the tarantula as it is, there's nothing new you can do or different to it.
Yep.
The only way to make it more wanted from me and not you is because it's cheaper and bigger or prettier, right? Or better deal. So when it comes to spiders that are hard to get, I'm naturally going to be wanting to charge more for them because they're harder to get and everybody wants them. If I'm in business with you and we're both trying to breed these spiders, blah, 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 and like we're trying to get them out like Celadonias for a long time.
Yeah.
Like battling back and forth. And so gatekeeping becomes one of those things. Is like, okay, like breeding tarantulas is actually not easy. But it is also one of those things where if you just buy a bunch of spiders of all the same species and you put them all together, there is success in numbers. You don't actually have to know a fucking thing about spiders. You can buy enough cobalt blues of males and females and raise them all up and just say fuck it and put a male and a female together until one of those bastards makes eggs, or you get a wild caught in and it just lays a sack that a week later after you bought it from the expo. Ain't nobody selling a curly hair for $20. You 800 babies. You know what I'm saying? That was complete accident, because they, even for $20, they'd have been like, that one's not for sale, because they would at least sold the babies for 50 cents a piece. So gatekeeping started with that. Then as breeding got a little bit better and people started to really get a grasp on it, which was probably like 2010, is really when people were like, yeah, I'm a breeder. Like you could actually prove that you've like put some species under your belt, you know, because it does take time. Because back in those times, like you weren't buying a lot of like adult stuff, or you didn't really realize size and maturity. And that's another whole thing that I would love to like get into is like the whole breeding part of it is
Yeah.
because everybody thinks you need an adult female and an adult male to breed. The only thing you need is a mature male. Most females are, why do you think males are so small?
Mhm.
Everybody's like, holy shit, that male, that little little avid male was tiny compared to the female, or that little Kilobrachus male, or like they're always tiny, right? That isn't because their nature's trying to. The only reason that happens is because the females are sexually matured around that size.
Right.
So in the jungle, where it's really fucking hard to get laid, you got a much better chance if you can have sex with more girls
Yeah.
than just one big bitch. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So naturally, males are smaller and mature faster because females are sexually mature. So like a full-grown female, males are like maturing here right as the females, but they still got all this size to grow.
Hmm.
Males die like, you know what I mean? And that's not true with all species. To give you an example, like Brachypelma, they don't become sexually mature until they're big. That's why all Brachypelma males are fucking big. Grammostola males are fucking big.
Yeah.
A lot of Asian spiders like Undep the males are good size, but then like Hilibrachus, like Quahini, the males are like this big, or Pumpkin Patch, they're like this big, but the females can get 3 times that size. And that's the misconception is people are having so much trouble breeding their spiders because they're waiting until they're grandmas.
Yeah.
It's like just like humans, like they tell you, don't have kids after you're 40 because you're probably going to have a lot of fucking trouble,
Hmm.
right? So wouldn't it be smart for you to be sexually mature back here so you can be breeding with all these sexually mature females? Now they're just full grown and older. They're going to get more picky, more obsolete, molt less. So it's going to take longer. They're going to have bigger babies, probably more production. But what happens is I personally think as the females get older, they actually become caretakers. They'll still breed, but they don't want to. That's why it's like, I
Yeah.
got this big old female and she bred and she molted out every time. Because she's already like she's already like 15 years old, dude.
Hmm.
Like, you should have been breeding her when she was 8 years old. Soon as she got her adult colors, the very next molt, they're sexually mature. So, like, Pinkto, the average Pinkto that you buy at Petco, when you go in there and it's like the size of a silver dollar, it's this
Yeah.
little thing, but it looks like an adult Pinkto.
Hmm.
And it's like that. If that's a female, she's probably sexually mature. If not, then the very next one.
Hmm.
Because most males are around that size or even up to the big size of females. That's why you can get males that are huge and some that are really tiny, so that they get that variation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of that has to kick into the gatekeeping part, because for many years nobody in the community ever knew that. Everybody was raising up their spiders till they were full fucking
Massive. Yeah.
years. Good. If I'm in competition to breed spiders and you think you got to raise your fucking spider up for 10 years, I've been breeding mine for 3 years already, bro.
Hmm.
You know? So now, thus, gatekeeping is born. I know shit you don't know about that species, and I have the advantage. I'm breeding them faster and have more of them, you know? Um, and when you're trying to pay your bills, you naturally become more cutthroat, and that is the definition of what it is. What has changed, what we're trying to do is make that to where we don't hide anything, man. Anybody could text me right now, and I will tell you every single thing I know about breeding that spider. I hope that you produce them. I hope to God that people aren't paying $300 or $150 for slings of stuff like that. Is insane.
Yeah.
Like like it's not. It's like it makes it worse. Like so like I want to eliminate that. Like everybody should have access to the spiders, the slings, and if you follow those rules that I was talking about at the beginning, you should be able to have access to all spiders in our community, because if you follow it the way I was explaining to you, you're going to get them, you're going to raise them, you're going to love them, and you're going to get them in the hands they need to be. And when that happens, you're gifted and blessed with stuff you don't have. People send me mails all the time. They're like, I don't need 200, Bome, but I'll take 2 or 3 and maybe a couple of those Victorii when they're ready.
Mhm.
Totally worth it. Absolutely. Send them on the way. I'll pay for the
I mean,
label. No problem.
I'd rather do that than have to make ads and sell stuff anyways. Like, I'm at that point now with a lot of snake stuff is like,
Well, that's why
like
I don't have a website. That's why I don't do commercials. If you
yeah.
go through Facebook, there ain't no Underdark commercials like deals and sales like all the big box store places. I don't even do that. I probably sell as many spiders, bro.
Mhm.
I might give away more, but at the end of the day, if that and the sustainment and making sure that the spiders are here. When I'm dead, I hope to God that Pascal are like Regalis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the only
Yeah.
way that's going to get there is because of people like me that are trying to breed them and not
Mhm.
continue to pillage for money, and gain and profit. It's like, cool. Hell yeah, I want to make some money. Like, let's be real. But I'm not going to do that because I'm trying to screw over my friend that just bought 100 of those off of me. Like, you want to breed them too? Cool, man. This is what I did. It's what worked for me.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I've never had to do that in my spider's breed. You know, at the end of the day, put them together, see what happens. She
Mhm.
could eat them. They could pair like butter, and you didn't have to do shit, or they could be a complete nightmare and want nothing to do with each other. You know, would you do wrong? Most of the time, the female wants to eat the male.
Mhm.
That should normally only happen after they pair. If your female
Yeah.
bred, it's because there's a reason for it. She reacted to it as a stimulus of food, or she wasn't conditioned ready to breed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if you can get your breed, then I mean anybody can do it. Hell, you put 2 pokies together. If she's tapping, bro, it's gonna happen. But if you're not there with a paintbrush to separate them as they finish, she's gonna fucking eat them. That's why a lot of people say, "Oh, co-have your pokey," and if she ate them, it's a good sign they paired. It's because you weren't there to protect them. So a lot of species only become food orientated toward the male after breeding, and that's because they were paired and conditioned and receptive for the breeding.
Mhm.
If a female wants to fucking eat the shit out of your male before they even like met, it's there.
She wasn't
There's
ready.
something wrong. She's
Yeah.
not receptive to this pairing. So usually you start again, and then you try it another week or two.
Mhm.
Um, and then through all that process, because of the demand and everybody wants the next best deal, and there's no versicolors at all the shows, and they're fucking $75. Everybody starts breeding and focusing on versies, and now, like, dude, you can get versicolors for $4 wholesale, like $20 wholesale, like $20 wholesale, depending on who you buy from, like, and who has how many.
Yeah.
But once upon a time, dude, versicolors were like not cheap.
Oh,
Slings
I
were
remember
$100.
that. Yeah, I remember that.
Hmm.
It's
But nobody knew a fucking thing about versicolor. Everybody would buy one and they were dead the next
yeah.
morning because they put it in a vial, no vent, no air. They're just murdering them by the
Mhm.
millions. You know
Yeah.
why they enact in ESA laws to protect the animals that don't need protecting. At least not from us. You know, they need protecting from where they come from.
So what's we had sort of in that same vein as far as the gatekeeping stuff, like misinformation overall and taboo husbandry. Um,
Well, that
I
happens basically. The misinformation and the husbandry thing happens because of the whole gatekeeping part, and then you have people who are the said gatekeepers, and they have the knowledge, and then they get a following of customers and people and friends, and then you have your tarantula. There's avenues of tarantula communities. You got like this company, and they got all his followers, and people love them. They buy all their shit from them, and then it's like you have different opinions and ways of doing things. Like, I guarantee you that I incubate and raise my slings and my uthecas way different than anybody else. You know what I mean? My traditional way of doing things is not pantyhose and water.
hmm
There's no cups of pantyhose and water in the jungle, but there's definitely a little spot where it's nooky and cold, like cool and moss patch.
yeah.
Um, so there's different ways of doing it. It still works. It's still successful. Which way's faster? Which way's better? Which one produces more slings? Then you get people who learn and collect their spiders from said person, and they are raising up spiders and they're learning their way. Like if you were to buy all your spiders from me only, I'd be teaching you the Dritz way, the Underdark way, and you'd be learning my way of
Mm-hmm.
the outlook on spiders and tarantulas, which can be drastically different from a spider, especially if it's a spider that came in as species and it
Yeah.
was misidentified and unlabeled in an import anyway, and we're just calling it species, Quaitaro or species fucking Michoacan, We don't actually know shit about that spider other than that maybe they collected it in Michoacan.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that genus and you know all of its closest relatives, you can get damn close and probably have some success. And if you beat the next person in front of you, you gatekeep it and you jack the price. The way to get around that is to help each other do it.
Yeah.
So any spider that I breed or any spider that I'm trying to breed that I've never bred before, I intentionally do it with. I intentionally try to do it with other people. So that way, I'm not taking away from anyone else. So like for instance, like I just started working like Saba Red and a couple other species like Valhalla and Cafuriana, species that nobody's breeding, nobody has, species that people don't even give two shits about. Like the
Mm-hmm.
only reason we have them in the community is because you can still get them wild caught. You
Yeah.
know, but when I'm producing them though, a lot of times the males like there's no way that I could have 1,000, 2,000 males on hand at all times by myself. The only way
Right.
that's possible is for people to hear me out, follow what we're trying to do, and work together. Send your mail. Like, cool, I'm done with it. I never get a mail and just keep it. As soon as I'm done with it, I know like 4 or 5 people in all the different groups that are like, dude, I need one, I need one, I need one. And it's like, cool, you're a known person, you're a known breeder, cool, you're in that group. Like there's chat groups of just like breeders. You don't
Right.
you don't just join that group, you're welcomed.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you don't just like wake up tomorrow and like you're in the tarantula breeding community. Like you earn your place. And there's no way to even get there if you're fucking people over and stealing their shit and selling them for twice what they sell, and they're the ones who gave them to you.
Yeah.
It's like if I send you a male and we breed this spider together, and then you send me half the slings and blah blah blah. Well, damn, half yours died and blah. So you're selling them at the shows for 50, $60. We've been the same show, and I'm selling them for 20. Like, cool, you ain't gonna last very long, dude. you know?
It
Um,
amazes me that people even do that because it's like we live in the same town, right? And
that's a fucking
we've been the same show, right? Like
yeah.
you think I'm not
I
gonna go
literally do
look
like most
around?
of the time when I go to shows and I see other vendors, man, I'm like, cool, you need any males? Do you have this one? And I was like, hey, here, take a couple of these slings because I sure as shit can't feed 500 Cambridge right now. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, then you see them again at the next show and they're like, hey, I remember you said you wanted a couple of these. Here's 30 GBBs or whatever. And then like it just before you know it, man, like they're coming out of
That's
your
the best
ears.
way to do it, man. That's because
It's so easy, bro. It's
it's the
so
same
easy
way
to
for
just
me with a lot of snakes. I've had a handful of people gift me certain species that I didn't think I'd ever get to keep, and it's
yeah.
for me it's a pay it forward thing. So Rhino
See, right
Rat.
here's something. Here's something cool about the pay it forward. Actually, when you mention snakes, because I'm not a snake guy. I don't not like them. My older brother Brent, he owns Exquisite Balls, Exotic Pets, and he focuses on special morphs of ball pythons.
Mhm.
South African. Um, the community, if used correctly, I'm at a show in Rhode Island somewhere, just vending, minding my own fucking business, and a guy comes up interested in baboon spiders. He's like, hey, I'm from South Africa. I moved here like a couple years ago, and wow, you got some really nice baboon spiders. And then we shoot the shit, and we start talking to each other. And he's telling me about the environment when he was a kid and like capturing like Baviana and like Darlinga because he's like from these areas, and I'm like, cool, man. I really love to pick your brain on like what it was like there in June. What it,
Yeah,
like how is it, because I breed these spiders. Like I'd really like to know like what it was like there and like does it really actually like monsoon rain like they say in this time of year and blah 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 and are they actually out this time of year? Have you ever seen any? Blah blah blah. Where do you see them? Anyway, he's a professional snake breeder himself, right? He owns his own company. He brings in genetics he's from South Africa, so he brings in genetics from South Africa and has recently brought in genetics like Striker, Furrow, what was the other one? Zodiac. I could go on and on. I'm not a snake guy, so I don't know. But there's nobody working with those genetics in the hobby, in the community right now for ball pythons. Very, very few people are busting out with Zodiac or Striker or Nyala or any of those, right? So my brother, being in genetics and doing all that stuff himself and really trying to push that thing like I do with spiders, I was like, hey, I met this guy the other day from South Africa. He's got like ball python genetics and shit, and you can actually like not gatekeep and actually bless both communities. Like I ended up trading him $5,000 spiders for $5,000 in South American genetics that have never been into the United States before, you know, without having to like do all this gatekeeping bullshit and like having to pay retail pricing and all this stuff. It's like, cool, I'm gonna trade you spiders I produced because you want baboons, and these are the ones that you asked for. And then it's like, cool, you're blessing us with the genetics, and now there's Zodiac and Striker and Nyala and Furrow genetics of ball python that have never been in the United States before, that are now going to be produced with like Super Striker and like all these. It goes on and on with snakes. I'm sure you know, but that's just how amazing it really can be. Is like at any moment,
the way it should be, man.
At any moment, you can meet somebody that's will change and open an entire new door and avenue. So gatekeeping is, I highly recommend that you stay away from those kinds of people because they're only going to keep you at the gate.
Yeah.
I prefer to open the door and go somewhere new. If that makes any sense in simple layman terms.
What's the saying? It's a rising tide lifts all ships.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also just nice to like when I've given like rhino rat snakes. That's sort of my jam. That's what I focus a lot on, and like they're not a difficult species to breed. They're kind of a difficult species to get started as babies. Like they're not very cheap, but like I make a point now to at least once a year give someone a rhino because I was given rhinos, and that's what that's what allowed me to even get to that position to where I could even do that. So like, if I'm
the same way, man. At every show, I give away hundreds of slings. Every little kid that comes up and I'm like, "Do you have a spider? Do you like spiders?" Like, "Oh my god, yeah." Their parents are like, "I don't know," and I'm like, "Oh man, you." And it's like you can clearly see it's like like parents don't want to like buy and pay for this fucking thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, just here's a little enclosure. Take this little, rose hair or whatever the hell sling they picked, and it's like that changes the world. That's the generation that we're leaving behind.
Mm-hmm.
If we make them scary and awful and nobody fucking wants them, and this awful community of gatekeeping, and you can't even ask any questions for help. Like, do you know how much like dumb shit I did to tarantulas that like you would be like crucified for today? That like nobody told me that sponges were like bacteria nests. I was 7 years old, bro. So I was like cutting kitchen sponges to like put in my little water dishes, like because that was like the way it was done. That's what you did, and you used fucking wood chips, and like every spider lived on wood chips. I had like cobalt blues and regalises and terrestrial tanks, and like nobody fucking knew a goddamn thing, bro. And now it's like this like deep, deep, dark science, and so anything with power and money brings fucking problems, and you're always gonna have people that prey. And Facebook is like a breeding ground for scammers right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's absurd, man. So part of the gatekeeping mentality is to like protect yours. If you like protect what you have and the members in your group, and you don't share outside of that, you don't breed with others, and you don't send mails to them because now they got fucking Lugardi and you don't, and now your girl ate the sack and now they're all producing Lugardi because you gave them a male, so then like that's it. Everybody's trying to have the next best selling deal. And I promise you that gatekeeping isn't the way to go. If you want to make some money on spiders, don't buy one. Don't buy a big old female. Buy 5 slings or juvies, raise them up till they're sexable. If you don't know how to do that, reach out to me. I'll do it for free. I love it. It's fun. And then you can trade those. and more than likely I'll need the male that I'm sexing for you. And then I'll give you 3-4 other spiders in its place. Or if you trust me enough, send it and I'll do my very best to, make its babies come home to you,
Yeah.
In the spider world, you have no control over fertility, and you never count your eggs until they're hatched. Put it that way. And you never count your eggs or dump them out. I don't know why people do that. Why do people take an egg sac that they pulled early and pour it out on a napkin and put it in a thing? Leave the sac alone. You don't ever rip a sac open, even if it's crunchy and you think it's bad. Leave it for the 30-day mark, like nature would do. And if it's nature will give you one or two. You might have a whole shitty sac, but there's one or two in there, and it's like once they reach that 30, 35 day, 45, whatever the species requirement is for natural incubation and the mother opening it for them to release, that would be the day that you tear it open in the incubator and spy and see if they're good or not. You still don't pour it out. You let them emerge on their own. I've opened a lot of sacs where they're 2i because I removed the mother and they're like ready to come out, and you rip it and they just come out like a fucking zombies in an apocalypse. They're like happy to see the world. And everybody's like, oh, I'm having trouble with incubation, or like the babies are dying or the eggs are molding. And a lot of people don't know this, but like there's species of tarantula that before they dump their eggs, one species that I can say that people will understand and recognize what I'm about to say is Idiothelmira, which is a
One of
trapdoor
my
baboon
favorites.
spider.
I love those.
Okay. If you've never bred them before
I have
or
not.
ever ripped open many, many sacs, before they lay their sac, they have like multiple types and layers of webbing.
Mm-hmm.
One is like thick and tough. The next one's waterproof. The next one's like moisture barrier, like Tyvek on a house.
Yeah.
And then after that, they spray like, I want to say honestly, if I could compare to something, it looks like spray foam.
Mm-hmm.
And then the eggs get laid like regular looking liquidy, oatmeal-y looking eggs in the yellow. And then when you rip open a sac that's good, the eggs are like nestled in webbing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hammock sac laying species. So there's no turning of the egg. There's no mother holding it and running around with it and like caring for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You can pull the mother from that sac because it's going to hang there whether she's there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So those species of like, it's amazing what like they like what they'll do. And like if you were to rip that open, let's say you pulled her and like, or she was trying to like eat it or whatever, you try to yank it early and dump them out. You're never going to have an Amira egg make it to maturity to become a larvae because you took it from its little hive part. So
Right.
once they do hatch and they're one eye and you open the sac, all those little egg casings that normally are like banging around in the sac. You ever like open a sac and there's all these little pieces in there that aren't spiders? That's like the casing of the egg, and that's
Mm-hmm.
still all attached in the wall of the hammock sac. You know what I'm saying? And that in itself is like part of the reason why that sac is the way it is. They didn't do that shit for fun. They
Yeah.
didn't evolve that way for the hell of it.
It's not a
There's a damn good
coincidence.
reason,
Yeah.
So uh, when you're a lot of people end up failing with breeding spiders, and I'm not gonna. And this is also the same thing. It's no different than wearing your seatbelt or not. Sometimes you don't wear a seatbelt, and it saved you from being ejected and killed. Or excuse, not wearing one,
It
and
goes
you know
the
what I'm
way
saying, or
around.
wearing one, and then it like rips your organs out because the accident was that bad. Like, so sometimes taking the sac from the mother early and ripping it open and dumping it out is actually beneficial because you can separate them from moldy or bad eggs and actually rescue them. And that's when it comes into experience in the breeder and everything else, and that's where a lot of times there is no book on how to do that. It's just like I've bred her 12 times and like this one's different. Something's up. She's not caring for it anymore. It's been 24 hours since I've seen her holding it and like protecting it.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's just like always over here and not with it. Like that doesn't mean the sac's bad or it's, like take it, keep it, nurture it as if it's good. Once it reaches day 30, Then you rip it open. If it's what you need to see inside, ools or babies or whatever, leave it like that and set it inside of a cup of moss on a little dish and let them emerge on their own under those conditions. And then that at least that's the way I do it, you know. And that's kind of stuff that like normally would be gatekeep. You know, like people would not like want to share stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's like everybody's trying to breed this new species and like everybody's got like sacks that are like no bad or like what. It's like, well, this technique is they actually like it like this at that particular stage in their life. You know, like a lot of arboreal tarantulas, you can't just put them in a cup with dirt. They'll have like stuck molts because they're arboreal and they're born in a arboreal setting. So when they molt, they actually like fall out of their molt like this. And if they're on the ground, they tend to get stuck to the molt because they haven't been able to fall free from it. You know, so you see that in some species, but the only way you would know that is by fucking that shit up and being like, damn, I should have did that. You know, and you ain't got to be a scientist to know that. You ain't got to be a scientist. You ain't got to go to college. You ain't got to be some fucking genius to know more than the people who are IDing and, you know, classifying these spiders. A lot of times have no fucking clue about like the spider other than the one that they're looking at and they're classifying and where they found it. They don't actually know shit about it, you know. And then they're like, oh, it's endangered and fuck. We don't know shit about it, so we should make some laws on it and make them wicked expensive, you know.
ESA list them.
And then it becomes on the ESA list. But I'm gonna tell you right now, there's more pokies in America than there are in the wild in India.
I have
You know what I
no
mean?
doubt.
Everybody's got 10 or 12 or shit. I got probably 300 pokies of 15, 20 different species, you know, different types of Indian spiders like Raja. Like nobody has Raja. Nobody has LSD earth tigers really. But that's because nobody knows a fucking thing about them. You know, it's like nobody cares to share it. Nobody cares to breed them or try. They just want to get them and sell them, you know. And then if people don't know about them in the cliques and the communities, they crucify each other for it, and it makes this weird thing happen. And like, you know, I see so many people like get in the community and like start getting spiders, and then they're like, "Fuck this!" Like, I've never had so much stress and drama in my life than being in that group.
I, for the most part, avoid Facebook groups just because it is that very thing. It's just exhausting, and I found that
Why?
you know, a lot of times they just suck the fun out of it. You know, like green tree pythons in particular.
I can't
like,
figure out why.
I'm not.
I mean, it's really just.
I'm not involved in the green tree python community.
There's really no There's really no reason at all why that should be happening. And I wish there was a way to fix it overnight, but people are people.
Like I'm in a handful of like tarantula groups and stuff, but you know, the ones that are massive with, you know, 50,000 plus people in them, stuff like that. I'm like, those are the ones that I typically just avoid because those are the ones usually with the most bullshit. And you know, it's just exhausting. You know, it's
well, and then what happens is like everybody's afraid to make posts because
people are afraid to ask questions. People are afraid to answer.
They can't even make an innocent post because people are going to be like, you should have did your what are you, a retard?
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, that's why I joined this group, so I could like figure out what I'm doing wrong. Like, it's bad, it's brutal, you know. So that's what we try to change. That's what we're hoping to do. Honestly, that's the whole reason that I'm even like, you know, want to even do this podcast thing. You know, like we work really hard day in and day out to like raise our spiders up to bless the world and the spiders too. You know what I mean? You can ask anybody in this community that knows me on a underdark level.
Mm-hmm.
They got nothing bad to say, man. Because if I did anything wrong or bad, I got a lot going on, dude. Yeah. Fuck, I'm sorry I forgot to call you back. Like, whoops. You know, like shit happens. You know, like and if more people were willing to help and make that a thing, I mean, everybody could win. Like this, we could make our spider world what we want. Mm-hmm. Like it is what we make it, man. If we all fight each other and jack prices and gatekeep and do all that weird shit and make laws to where I can't even share them with somebody who really does give a shit. Like, how are we actually protecting this spider other than hurting it more? Mm-hmm. You know? So that's one thing I would like to see change and that's one thing that I've really, the whole reason that I even started doing Facebook, you know, like 20 years spiders and breeding and selling to all the vendors and I can name probably 5-10 vendors that were around before social media was even in existence. You know what I mean? And like I said, they were at the shows, they were in the tarantula societies, they were on arachno boards, and then you had your diehard fans and stuff like that. And then it just kind of over time fanned out and got more because everybody was doing it now. Especially when COVID happened, everybody started being at home all the time. You tend to look at your phone a lot more, and you realize, and you're like, wow, like I could, I probably could make a living off of this,
Yeah.
And a lot of the tarantula dealers and vendors were booming during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, I sold the fuck out of some spiders.
Yeah, well, yeah, dude, it was the same for reptiles and the same for plants. Like, just
hell yeah.
unbelievable.
Everybody wanted to fix their house, which I'm a contractor. I own my own construction company, so like everybody wanted to fix their house, which was good, and everybody wanted to buy my spiders. So it's gonna be an up and down industry always. People are gonna not want
Oh
to
yeah,
do it. People get out of it. It happens
cyclical.
all the time.
Yeah.
And you see really good people who are really talented breeders that are like selling their collections and like just done with it's because of the stress and the competition and like packing all your shit to go to the shows, and then you go to the show and everybody shows up thinking it's a zoo and not a show. They just want to hold and pet your shit.
Yeah.
And you drove 5 hours to Hamburg, you can burn out quickly.
Very, very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's usually my thing is like with the gatekeeping is I always tell people is go with the speed of the spider.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be spent if you really want to do spiders and make a thing out of it and make it like a true profitable career or go somewhere with it is grow in the speed of your spider. Don't go out and buy $2,000-$3,000 worth of spiders and like try to breed them and raise them up overnight. Now you're a vendor.
Yeah.
Because the industry moves so fast and changes so quickly, and there's so many people out there who actually don't want to see you succeed, that it's not going to be easy to just quit your 9 to 5 and then start selling spiders.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always going to have my job. Like I'm always going to do consulting and construction, period. But I'm also never going to not have thousands and thousands of spiders. Like, I mean, hell, I'm like, sometimes like you have so many spiders, man, they're like, you can't capture them all. Like, you get like 3 or 4 fucking sacks in a row that hatch and they're all in containers and like you cup every one of those. There's a couple of them that are just quicker than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care who you are. And now you got spiders living in your house and you do that for 10 years. One day you're going down the basement and there's a full grown OBT female in your duct vent, You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit. There's like 2 molts in there too. She's really like, like it. Hey, it is what it is. So there's a lot of fun.
Living her happy life.
Yeah. You know what the coolest part of it all too is in the last, like I said, last 10 years probably is I'm wicked grateful. I feel wicked blessed that social media exists. I wouldn't even be speaking to you right now. I would have never met you, or I've met so many badass, loyal, trustworthy, amazing human beings that I've never even met before.
Yeah.
But I've known for years.
Yeah.
And like I would consider like best friends, It's like it's
Isn't
so
it
amazing
how it's flipped too, because like early days of the internet, they're like, you met a stranger online, like they might be a serial
You
killer.
weirdo.
I talk to people that I haven't met in person more than I talk to like
man, I got like
family.
300 or 400 friends that I'm like fucking buds with. I can like call them while they're like on their way to work, I've never met them.
Yeah.
I've never actually shook their hand or met
So
them.
funny to me how it's completely flipped from what it used to be.
And I think that's amazing. So that's a huge driving force and why I like it. What gives us our fire.
It makes the other bullshit on the internet worth it.
It does.
Without a
It
doubt.
does. No matter, I don't care who you are. The more successful and the more things you do, the more haters you're gonna have. There's always gonna be people who think you suck.
Yep.
And it just is what it is. So it does make it tough. It does make it tricky, and it's very discouraging. I know anybody that I actually know with spiders. The minute I say, yeah, man, fucking Facebook groups on, spiders are brutal, huh? And they're like, yeah, I don't even like do those because they're fucking brutal. Like, that's like, we should be ashamed as a fucking community, as human beings. We call ourselves keepers and caretakers of tarantulas. Like, we can't even talk to each other without like chewing each other's heads off. How the fuck are you consider yourself a caretaker of a tarantula because you're worried about who they voted for? Like,
Yeah.
you've got this backwards, and that's one thing I would love to see change too, is people to be able to come together of all walks of life, whether you agree or like each other or not, and still be able to like do what we came here for. Do what we came here for. You see so many times people bouncing in and out of groups, and especially me. Like I said, I do a lot of modding and admin stuff. I have my own groups, and it's like, it's actually sad how many like. And then there's all this weird politics because like that person quit your group and he's like friends with that person. What do you do?
Yeah,
Kick them
it's
out?
fucking
What do you do?
middle,
Like
middle
like
bullshit, dude.
like what the fuck is going on, man? Can we just love our spiders and like learn some shit? maybe smoke a little grass, have a couple beers, and like we all go home happy.
There you go.
So no gatekeeping.
We are
So
nearing.
let me ask you this: how many spiders do you have? Since we were all this breeding and all this, sorry, I kicked the fucking thing. That you have ever thought about breeding? I think this is always a fun topic because what spiders do you have? How old are they? And then do you think they can breed? Find out that like most people have a lot of spiders they didn't know are breeder ready. They think they have to be so much or big.
No, I mean the only thing that I have that I think is even as far as like a pair of something that's even approaching the ballpark of even thinking about pairing them is the two classy that I have, and they're almost the same size. The female is probably about that say silver dollar size, but she's probably a little bigger than that.
Silver dollar. So
yeah, roughly.
that means you got like like 6 more years.
Yeah.
But listen to this. You said you have a male too?
Yes.
How big is your male?
He's pretty much the same size. You there?
How big is he?
He's about the same size. He's slightly larger, but not by much.
Oh, you froze again.
Uh-oh.
Are you there?
Check. Marco.
Are you there?
Marco.
Hello.
Hey, there you go.
All right, cool. Yeah, so your female, silver dollar.
Yep, male he's slightly larger than her.
Okay. So you're never going to line them up. The male needs to be 2 molt cycles, better 3 molt cycles behind your female. If you're raising them from sling or from juvie or whatever, because females are going to become sexually mature when they do. Their timeline is their timeline. You can't change that. But males, if they're already bigger or a molt cycle ahead or whatever, they're going to do that quicker anyway, because they mature within 6, 7, 8 years if it's like pushed. So if you're really trying to raise up a baby or silver dollar pairs, you want your silver dollar female to be twice the size of your male. And then you're going to keep your male as warm and feed him as much as he wants. You're going to feed him until he just doesn't want it. Then you remove the food. But he's going to be as the warmest possible place. You're going to keep your female at like, room temperature, 70s. Let her grow her normal pace and speed and nurture and care for her like it would be in nature. And there's a really awesome book. It's very outdated. This book is from when I was like a little kid, but the essence of the information in it holds true to spiders. And it's called the World Weather Guide. It's like fucking $6 on Amazon used. But it tells you like the country, like you got a spider from of every day, the highs and the lows, tells you the humidity ratios. It tells you how many days per month it rains in every single month and how much. so you know how many days a month to miss. It's like, well, how often do I miss my spider? If
Right.
you've got an aphid from the Caribbean islands, Caribbean Reverse Color, you turn to that page and it says, what day of month is it in where you live? It's January. Cool. Well, what's your spider room? You keep your spider room at what, 75 degrees? You're just going to go in there on every single month for temperature. And oh, look, bang. In February, it's on average around 75 degrees. You follow it across, and it says it rains 10 days that month on average in that country, right there in that spot. So that means in 30-day month, you're going to water your spider every other day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't need a water dish now. There ain't no water dishes in the wild. You got plants and bark, and you're set up like they would have it in their environment. And every other day, you go in there and you miss, spray all the foliage, spray the ground, spray the glass, clean the fucking glass, spray it like Dave Beastie Room does, and clean that bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And spray all her shit down her hole. You ain't gonna hurt your spider if you spray her. Only if you penetrate her exoskeleton, it's gonna hurt her. Do you know how many spiders crawl across the ground and it torrential rains right on top of them? You ain't gonna hurt your spider by misting. Sometimes they'll come out and like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So follow the book, and every single spider is wicked simple to keep. Like fuck, you got a Vietnam, okay, cobalt blue. You turn to that country, bang. I'm trying to breed her, right? They breed in the fall. So now that we started the fall. It's wow, the hottest day of year, and there's 95 degrees. Well, we ain't gonna do that, right? That's retarded.
Mm-hmm.
But that also tells you they can tolerate 95 degrees.
Right.
If that motherfucker had to run through his life through the jungle, he wouldn't die because it's 95. He can do it. So you're good. You can make your spider room way hotter than the average keeper keeps it. There's another thing. And that's why a lot of egg sacs go bad. And that's why a lot of egg sacs get eaten, is because when the egg sac is supposed to be incubated for that time of year for that spider, your spider room is 75 degrees and the average daily high is 92. Okay, that also means the spider is going to be down and underground and stuff. But the average ambient lifestyle, an ectothermic animal, which Marshall ArachNerds, Jessica Teets and Ryan Marshall, I implore those motherfuckers for all their talent and knowledge on that. And it shows because they're right. Some species bask and love sunlight. If you look at the fucking book and how often it rains and how much sun, like for instance, I got this theory about Darlingi and like African baboons based on the horn on their head.
Yeah.
We can that's a whole nother thing. We can do another thing about like baboon spiders sometime. But if you look at the environment they come from, there's like 6 fucking months, man, with no food, no rain, but just brutal fucking dry heat. The humidity is like
It's just
10,
like an oven. Yeah.
dude. And then it rains, and it's like then they have like monsoon season. The baked scorched earth is like hard as a rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's why most baboon spiders are hammock laying spiders. Because when it does fucking rain and they need the moisture and the bugs and the food, there's torrential rains occurring. So if you look when you want your OBT to lay, you turn in that book, bam, they lay their sacks at usually this time of year, which you'll know if you read the breeding book and stuff or Astrid. You'll know because it'll show every single fucking day it rains there.
Mm-hmm.
There's 30 days in that month, and 29 days, it fucking rained 14 fucking inches that month.
Oof.
That's almost a half an inch a day.
Yeah.
Which it don't rain every day. Okay, cool. It don't rain for a day or two, but then it rains like 3 motherfucking inches.
Mm-hmm.
And that hard ass African soil just turns into floodplains. And like tarantulas are just wiped out. If they were carrying a ball or an egg sac, it's wicked hard to like take that shit with you while you save your own life. It's better for you to mount it to your station because those floodwaters usually come and they go.
Mm-hmm.
Egg sacs, and that's why you never pull your spiders out of their egg sac, because she's woven that out of special silk that's watertight. Like it can actually be underwater for 24 to 48 hours or whatever, because those floodwaters will reside and that hammock sac is still woven to the wall. Well, at least hopeful. And that's the theory on it. So you can get your spider and you can trigger your spider to lay by following what makes them do it in the wild. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was mentioning, Marshall ArachNerds and stuff, because they are actually the only other person in the community as far as like vendor and like, profitable person that's known in the community that actually understands this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you know, a lot of Aphonopelmas take 9, 10 months to lay a sack in captivity, and most of the time they lay and it's a piece of shit, or it's just a dud anyway. And that's because you're so far off from what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they actually breed and lay their sack, like there is like scorching earth. Like it like GBB, like you put a basking light on a GBB for 6 hours a day after you've bred her, and you keep the one side of her enclosure soaking fucking wet. Like this book says, spray it and keep that side soaked, but you keep the other side basking, and then it's like that should be like 90 degrees inside of that tank during the day. And she will lay within 2 to 3 months, not 9 and 12 months like we typically hear about. Like, wow, it took that bitch forever to lay. You know, like she's gravid, she's going to lay, but the gestation period is now being altered.
Right. You're
so
kind
then
of
when the sack,
you're working against yourself.
yeah, so when the sack is laid, it's when against the entire obstacle in itself of the gestation period taking more than 2 months and 3 months. It's now took 6, 9, like the average grandma stole in captivity, because nobody's ever been doing like Marshall Arachna said, and following the book in the basking light in the sun reaching 110 degrees in Arizona. Nobody does that in their spider room for fucking
funny to me
because
it's not uncommon for people to do that kind of thing with snakes.
So listen to this. If you take a Calcotis, right?
To me, it's like, yeah, that's what you do.
So you can actually take a reptile lamp like you would have for a lizard, and you don't use it all the time. You keep her in your spider room year round, and you love her and you care for her. When she molts, then you throw her into conditioning, and you read the book of when that species starts to breed, and you just start from that point. Once she molts, feeding her and following the breeding weather. By then, you've procured your male. He's ready to breed. He's a male, hopefully, and he's mature, and he's made a sperm web, and you got it from another breeder that knows what the fuck they're talking about. And then he shows up. You can put him in that same night. Dude, I get mails from some of these top-notch breeders out there, bro, who send that motherfucker with his, like, notes. Like, he comes at that box like, where's she at? Like, you know, like, and then your female's ready for it, too, because you've been doing that for a whole month. You've been putting a basking light on with a timer. So for 4 hours a day, that motherfucking reptile lamp comes on, and it gets 90 fucking degrees in that Aphono's tank. But she's also got 10 inches of soil, and she's down at the very fucking bottom, and it's all damp. So it's really not 90 down in there. It's probably like 82 or 78 or whatever, about where it's in your normal spider room. And that's why some people have luck just throwing spiders together, because they do typically, but she's still going to recognize that temperature variance and difference, and that's going to be her trigger. The amount of water, the amount of days that she feels rain and like liquid in her environment, she's going to be like, damn, it's starting to rain all the fucking time. It's hot as fuck up there. And yeah, so then it makes it really simple to like start breeding the spiders that way. And really, it's no more or less, even if you don't breed them. You know, you just follow that for your spider. And that's why some people like, oh, I water my spiders once a week. You water your spiders once a week. So you're telling me every single spider you own, you water them once a week. You know, that's going to end up being a problem.
It's a lot of rain.
Well, and some of them don't even need that.
Yeah.
Some of them get rain twice a month, you know, and it's like 1/4 of an inch, you know. So
we are at the 3-hour mark, man.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I told you. I tried to warn you.
Oh, I love it. We got plenty.
Yeah,
we got stuff we didn't even get into. So definitely gonna have to.
Yeah, we did. We probably didn't even talk. I'm a scatterbrain myself personally. You can like edit this part out later, but there's so much like spider shit that happens in my head, dude. I can't even stay on topic. It's like impossible, because then I got like 4 other examples, and like the whole thing of like why spiders are shaped the way they are, like the way they eat, and like Darlingi, why they have the horns. You know, like I got this whole. I wrote my thesis on that in college. Why Darlingis are horned baboons. You know, it's amazing.
Have to do a part 2 and definitely get into that. And then there's plenty of other species specific stuff that I'm curious about, and even just the breeding timeline of stuff and whatnot. You know, your brain on class. There's there's a lot we can
do.
Lot to
we
get
can
into.
even do stuff too where you know, I was talking with a couple other like friends of mine and breeders and stuff, and like you know, now that I've noticed like your podcast, it, like you have your podcast and then you like speak to a person. But I feel like as you grow and you do your episodes, like now that I've been on here, right? If you're gonna have one of like my collaborators, like my friends, like I breed with and know daily, like we talk on the phone all the time, like when they come on your show, me, I will too. And like, and then you like, now your like podcast is like 6 people, you know, 7 people. And like, we have the speaker of the room, which is you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, when we get on a topic and stuff, like you have to be the guy that be like, hey, Logan, like, okay, come on, buddy. I know, like, Dritz will just keep talking. Like, you got to shut me up, dude. Like, nobody else will get to fucking talk, you know? So, but I think what would be cool is, you know, I have a couple of friends that are like huge spidery, dorky fuckers like me, and you could do like a breeding thing, and we can just talk about why baboons do what they do, like the behavioral shit. Like people really want to like get a, you know, own baboons. I really like having like, you know, OBTs and like, well, you know, like we can go through like the whole spiel of why baboon spiders are hammock layers, why they would actually
I
evolve to become, you know, hatch door spiders and do
I
trap
really
doors.
wanna do more. Like that was something Sarg and I had talked about initially too. Like before we started the podcast, was like I want to do genus specific episodes and
Yeah.
things like that to, you know.
Yeah. My goal is too, is just like make, so to me, and a lot of like what got me into this social media thing, what started this fucking animal is because um the standard knowledge, if you were to just not know shit about tarantulas, right? And you went to the pet store and started to go online and learn about spiders and join Facebook and get into spider groups, the standard of care and the standard of basis for what the industry is about is really fucked up. Like you and I know the industry, so we can talk about it and know, and like we're cool, like we'll deal with it. Like, but like if like you never knew shit about tarantulas and you finally got one, and like you were trying to grow and learn and like meet, you know, and do
Mhm.
this and watch podcasts and stuff, like you get crucified. Like the standard of like basis of where like somebody starts in the community is so fucked,
Mhm.
because there's nobody that's even like even like just me like running my mouth for all that time. Like if you listen to like half the shit like that, like I'm learning, like I'm not just spewing it from like I had to figure that out on my own. A lot of
Mhm.
the stuff, like I didn't read a book and learn, like I did a lot of it, but you experience it and learn it, and that's stuff that's like should be free to you. Like my
Yeah, and I mean
experience.
that's what this is supposed to be. Like I wanted the podcast, you know, we want it to be something that people that are just getting into it, you know, can get something out of. People that are, you know, somewhere in the middle, and then people that have been in it a long time. Like we want there to be something that anyone, regardless of level, can get something out of.
And I
And
like doing giveaways too, Pan. I think one thing that would be really cool too is if, you know, like I'm down too. Like I've more than enough spiders to do awesome giveaways and attractors, because some people are just like, cool, it's another podcast. They're probably gonna just think I'm a fucking panty waste and talk down to me. And you know, like you really don't hear much people like newbies like just like jumping into the community. You know, and like I know a lot of people now that are like in a lot of our tarantula groups that are like big, like they've carved out their own little spot. Like when
mhm.
you when you talk about the person in the community, like, oh yeah, I know them. You know, like when I meet people, they're like, oh, I know Dritz. Like, yeah, I know Dritz. You know, like you don't have to advertise. I don't do commercials. I don't have a website. I don't do shit. But what I do is I treat people right, and I share the love of tarantula knowledge, and make sure that people that don't know aren't given fuckery, like putting sponges in water dishes. You know, because the standard of care of what is expected in the tarantula world is like, oh, keep it like a pokey, and then they wonder why their apic died in a year later or
Yeah.
something, you know, like, and then because everybody's like, there's this huge stigma on like instant death avic or whatever the fuck they call it, and it's just all those poor people are hanging around instant death avic people. Like avics are hardy ass little bugs, man. They're fast and smart and cute, and they're fucking like, I mean, you have average death of 1 to 2% based on species genetics alone,
Mhm.
but like you shouldn't be losing every single one you raise to a juvie. Like you're doing something wrong. Like you know, like, and then like there's this thing about humidity and FHE, and like, you know, uh, I would love to change through these podcasts, through this conversational thing, and like have multiple members join, to where we can all hear this knowledge and stuff together, because sometimes people don't listen till you ask them to be on your podcast. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I never listened to your podcast till you asked me to come, and that's only because of that exact example, and if we do these podcasts and we share them out there and people are like, oh, I'm really interested in breeding baboons, we could be like, dude, episode 13.
Yep.
And it's going to talk about the fucking breakdown. What makes a spider a baboon? It's from Africa. Okay. What's Africa like? Cool. Let's find out. The spiders from Zimbabwe, And then like now you don't need any like care sheet now. And in an hour podcast, like what makes a baboon a baboon?
Mm-hmm.
Why their OBTs are cranky, but they're not when you treat them with as long as you don't do what makes an OBT cranky, they're more chill than a fucking rose hair or a smithy or a robustum kicking hairs at you for opening the lid, But if you keep those guys correctly and you give them the digging space and everything else, they don't kick hairs much, They're in captivity settings, so they're always going to have bald butts as they age, but like there's a huge misconception of actually what stresses a tarantula, and opposed to what a tarantula will do to live. There's a difference between thriving and surviving. Somebody, you get a really tough avic and he lives half his life, and then all of a sudden he just dies. He was probably just hanging on. Who knows? Or maybe not. Sometimes they just fucking die. And that needs to be talked about more, and knowledge put out there more about it. And
we'll definitely definitely make it happen. Definitely we'll talk about the baboon thing, and then we'll get sort of a part 2 set up for this.
We can do. I mean, shit. I know.
I want to do it all.
We could do panfos, man. Like, dude, I love panfos, man. So my specialty is hot tea, and Formingo Kailis. I could talk about those till the sun comes up. But we can do all that kind of shit as well. I got a couple friends that I collab with that specialize in dwarfs. Ari and Jesse with ArachNerds Anonymous. Really good friends of mine and stuff. And I think it'd be fun too. Is like you guys get more podcasts, and once you get all the guys shows, then like you can do like dual showy things, and like I'm telling you, we can make some really amazing content with by having 5-6 other people with like minds and that are actually collaborating together, and people can see how that actually works, and
we just we put the information out there, and if people
it's something that's never been done before. Just so you know, there is no podcast out there that banks collaboration effort. Because gatekeeping is real, but if you can Google, you can find a show. I'm sure you're in podcasting. There's no podcast out there that focuses on Theraphosidae and collaborates with multiple money-making real players. You know what I mean? That actually are like
not really that many invert podcast period. So,
well, that's what I mean. And there also is no industry standard. People like Tom Moran and Tarantula Collective, and like there's these names, but like there's a lot more than just like going to Tarantula Collective and then buying a spider. You know what I mean? Like you can do it and get away with it. Like the spiders are going to be tough. I mean, you get a fucking like any kind of arid Aphonopelma or whatever. Like they're going to tolerate a lot. Like so you can kind of fuck. That's why they say beginner species. Beginner species just means that it tolerates mistakes.
Margin for
error. It doesn't actually mean like safe or like, dude, like some of my first spiders were like ones that you would never recommend. But like you went into it like, hey, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna learn. There's nothing to fear. You learn their environment and everything else. There's no reason why you can't get your first tarantula and it be an OBT. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever. It's absolutely retarded if you go to Petco and buy one and you've never did it, because you're going to go home with a sponge in your water dish and you're going to end up losing it in your kitchen. You know what I mean? And that's why the industry is so fucked. That right there, because nobody is doing this part and being like, hey, you can actually get a Balfouri for your first spider. They're actually handleable. That'd be another cool topic to go over too, is being able to handle and do, how that works, because as a breeder, I handle every spider I own. You have to. There's no way you're breeding Like I have Nigerum right now in the background. He's over there tapping and banging away, and
He's ready.
at any moment I could have to run over there with a paintbrush and save his life, you know. But I would also let it bite me to do it, you know. But he probably wouldn't. I've never in a breeding situation been like, unless I did it because of my ignorance or something like that. But if you literally just treat yourself as an aid to the male, you can literally like cup him up and pull him out of there. Like, you know, if I don't know if you're ever watching any of my content or videos, but like I'm right there in there with them, you know, and they're never trying to hurt you. I've never had an OBT try to bite me. I've had an OBT be like, back up, motherfucker. But I've never had an OBT actually be like, fuck you and get you. Like that's, and I've bred OBT since I was a child, thousands and thousands, dude. I probably have like 300-400 of them right now, you know, and I've never even been by one. And I've been in the shower like, shh, and look up and there's a fucking OBT baby. I'm like, fuck, how'd you get out, you little fucker? And then you go downstairs and female number 6, her sack hatched early. Holy shit. You know what happens, you know? Super fun. So anyway,
well, people want to get in touch. What's the best way for them to do it?
So Facebook, first of all. I mean, you can go to the Underdarks page on Facebook. You can also reach out to anybody that I'm in these groups with. I mod in a lot of the groups, you know, like Tarantula, Keepers of America, you know, TBR, you know, any of these groups you can join and feel free. Like my phone number is on my Facebook page. You can actually text my phone. It's fine, you know. You know, that at the end of the day, I'm willing to help somebody. I don't need to make money off you. You know, if you really want to know information, I'm not going to be giving out information and my time and stuff to people that are trying to take advantage of others or buy spiders to resell. You know, there's a lot of scammers out there, so you got to be careful. So definitely, you know, use Facebook and social media, and you can reach out to us. And there's so many of my friends out there that'll probably give you just the same knowledge, you know. So it doesn't even have to. You don't have to get to me to even get to me. You know, a lot of the people that have been on this podcast already, I'm friends with and know personally. You know, so it's really cool, man. I'm glad that this is happening.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Once again,
finally,
we gotta set up a part 2, and
well, there's never gonna be any kind of incredible, super extra flagellistic expialidocious type of pod show if we don't start making at least some of them. You have to have something to, you know, you gotta have to make them. If you don't make them, they don't exist. So I'm glad that we can start doing this and actually put some real knowledge and gift and actually like community blessing and gift, you know. And I hope that like people watch my content and my videos and actually like, you know, I'm proud to know that like a lot of people like their kids love it too. You know, like there's kids out there that are going to grow up and love spiders. That's a huge win for the human race. A huge win, bro. So much love. Peace.
This was episode 11 of ArachNerds, brought to you by Fulvius Apparel, fulviusapparel.com. Use the code THN at checkout, get 15% off your order. That's the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you. We will be back as soon as we can. We'll get something scheduled. Yeah, I think we'll be back Monday night for Snakes and Stogies. Be on the lookout for that. And we'll see everybody later.